lot about drills and fundamentals.
Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it!
On 93.5
Watch it!
and 107.5.
Boom, baby!
The Fan.
Hey, Jake, how you doing?
I am hanging. I am rested and ready for a weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
I was going to say, that was probably a nice little recharge of the batteries for you, because I'm guessing Wednesday was well into Thursday morning for you guys getting back here from the concert, and boy, you're going to be out there like 72 straight hours starting about noon today, right?
Pretty much, yeah. IndyCar today, Xfinity race tomorrow, as well as the IndyCar race tomorrow, Brickyard on Sunday, so it's going to be busy out there. I did come back in and do Beyond the Bricks last night. So I don't know. Can I get the day off back, do you think?
Boy, I would love to say that I have control over that, but I think you know the answer to that. How's Kravitz?
Oh, gosh, I tried. I haven't really talked to you guys since then. Kravitz was great. We drove up, my buddy Michael Weir and I and Bob, to Bruce Springsteen on Wednesday night at Wrigley. We picked up Bob on the way. He lives on the northern side of Indianapolis, so he just drove over and we left his car at a hotel on the north side and then rode up together. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was great fun. It's funny, a couple people asked me, they're like, hey, what did Kravitz have to say about this or that, like in the world? And I'm like, we didn't talk a lot about sports. We talked a lot about music and about IU growing up and Michael's time growing up in Warren Township and myself on the north side. And Kravitz is a big Springsteen fan, had seen him several times. Michael and I, neither one had seen Springsteen before. And I think I texted you guys yesterday. I mean, on a 1 to 10 scale, my fandom for Bruce Springsteen is like a 6. I mean, I know all his songs. I've always respected him. I've always heard he's a super cool guy. And I've always heard that he puts on a good show. I had no idea. I mean, it was, to me, and part of it was a perfect night outside. I mean, it was perfect. The weather was absolutely spectacular. And you're at Wrigley Field, which is there's no better venue. But he came out, literally the concert was set to start at 8 o'clock Chicago time. Bruce Springsteen walked out on the stage at like 7:59. Individually, each member of the band comes out and everybody's clapping. And as soon as he comes out, he like takes a bow and the music started and it was, holy cow, off and running. And I mean, it was...
He was born to run?
He was born to run, baby, for just over 3 hours. And what was fascinating is he goes, for the most part, from one song into the next without pause. It's not like he's done with a song, everybody cheers, there's 2 minutes of silence. I mean, it just one bled right into the next to the next to the next. He played 26 songs.
Jeez.
It was one
What was
of the most,
encore?
Born to Run was the first of the encore, then Glory Days, then Dancing in the Dark, and then I'm like, hey, let's start heading that way.
Smart.
And Bob did the same because Bob was seated. Bob's seats were different than where we were.
Did he wear those baggy jeans he wore that one time in the Indy Star photo shoot?
I think he did wear baggy jeans, yes, and a baseball hat. It's funny, he wore a Maple Leafs hat.
He didn't have his Hartford Whalers hat on? Come on, Bob, or his Blackhawks hat on?
He was wearing a Maple Leafs hat, and we were walking to Wrigley, and some guy sitting outside eating dinner at a restaurant on the street goes, yeah, let's go Leafs. And Kravitz like, I don't like the hat. He just kept walking. But it was, I've never, I can't remember if I mentioned this to you guys or somebody yesterday. I've never had this happen. But when we were leaving, so our seats were in the very front row of the section that we were in, but we were like 4 seats from the aisle. So we could have like hopped down off the front row, but I wanted to go to the protocol and go through the aisle and to the steps. And as we were leaving with like 2 songs to go, obviously you've got to say to the person next to you, like, excuse me, they got to kind of back up so you can walk through. I had not said a word to the guy next to us the whole time, believe it or not. He couldn't because the music was so loud. But as we're leaving, I say, hey, we're going to head out. And the guy stands up and I'm walking past and he puts his hand out to shake my hand and goes, hey man, it was good. It was good sharing this experience with you. I go, totally agree. That's the only way that I can describe it was there were 40,000 people that for one night for 3 hours collectively just celebrated. I don't know what we were celebrating, but we just celebrated because the guy was an unbelievable entertainer.
Gosh, that reaction's like you guys drank Kool-Aid in a forest together.
I mean, honestly, that's exactly what it was like. Like they were passing around peyote or something.
That's awesome. We did read your text on air yesterday. We kept out the one word that I don't think we could have said on
It was
air.
right when I woke up. I was like, I wonder what they're talking about.
Yeah, you were dialed in the 9 o'clock hour. That's awesome. I think any experience in Wrigley would be on the bucket list, and let alone Springsteen. So, nice job on doing that.
It was a hell of a lot of fun, man. I will say that. It was a lot of fun.
A good Friday morning to you. It is a nice start here in Indianapolis. We are just over 24 hours away from the Colts preseason opener. So as we get into these, I guess, football Fridays, Greg Rakestraw, Matt Taylor. That's been kind of our duo here in recent years. High school scrimmages abundant tonight. First week of games next Friday. And Rake on the TV call coming up tomorrow in Buffalo. Matt Taylor, of course, on the radio call. So we'll chat with both of them as the announcement yesterday came from the Colts that Anthony Richardson will be the starter coming up at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And speaking of announcements, Jake, we've got one coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, don't we?
We do. We have a big show announcement to come to make it 9 o'clock.
Did I see you tweeted about it last night?
I did. I'm excited about the announcement that we're going to make at 9 o'clock.
I was...
Several people were trying to guess what the announcement
I was going to
is at 9
say,
o'clock. No one guessed it correctly.
Rosie Bowen was struggling sleeping last night, so I went into my old bunk bed, which is her current bed situation.
Hold on. You have an old bunk bed?
I do, but we don't have the top bunk currently.
Was this from you mean like your childhood bunk bed?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So my father actually built them. He's an extremely handy individual. And so half of it is with Rosie right now. The other half is with my brother at his house. So I slept in that with Rosie for a couple hours last night. Let's just say not conducive to a 6'3" human being anymore. So trouble sleeping. I decided to scroll through your tweet and look at some of the guesses from people. Alex Golden asked if we're going 7 days a week now.
Well, this week I am.
I wanted to say to Alex, have you ever listened to the show 9 o'clock on a Friday? We can't even go 15 hours.
Correct. Yeah, it's a 15-hour work week for us, and we check it in at about 13. Typically.
Ray said the PBR party's finally happening. Well, Ray, I've got some bad news for you. Don't know if that's going to be the announcement coming up at 9 o'clock. Michael, Bruce Springsteen will be performing in studio. That would be quite the get.
That would be awesome. Have you ever heard the Bruce Springsteen eggs story? I guess everybody but me knows this. Do you know the story?
No.
Mark?
And this from Roar. You and Kevin will be doing all shows moving forward topless.
God, I hope not.
That definitely ain't happening.
Is that your burner, Mark? You were the one that really wanted me shirtless for the old Brewers
I didn't want
Reds
you
bet.
shirtless. I just thought that you should put some skin in the game with your bet with Joel Erickson.
What was the Springsteen thing you were going to say, Jake? Sorry.
Have you heard this story with Springsteen and eggs?
No.
So Bruce Springsteen years ago recently he was doing an interview telling a story about years ago. He was doing an interview a couple of years ago, I guess, on I think it was a British television show. And they were asking him about fan interaction. And he said, well, actually, funny enough, in the mid to late 80s, I was doing shows in St. Louis. And I think Springsteen typically has one night off between shows like he does. He played he played Wednesday night in Chicago. He plays again tonight in Chicago. So there's always like a day off. And he said, I was in St. Louis doing shows, and I had the day off, so I went to a movie. And he goes, and I go to the movies, and it was a Woody Allen movie, and it happened to be a movie about Woody Allen. The character in the Woody Allen movie didn't like his fans or something. I don't know. But at any rate, Springsteen meets this high school kid and his girlfriend in the lobby of the movie theater. And so then he, oh my gosh, you're Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, so okay, whatever. So they go into the movie, they sit down, and they're the only three people in the theater. So the kid and his girlfriend say to Bruce Springsteen, like, hey, do you want to sit with us? And Springsteen's like, so I was like, yeah, okay. So he sits with them. They watch the movie, and the movie's about this character in the movie that was of fame that didn't like fans. So after the movie, the kid says to Springsteen, so is that kind of like you? Do you not like fans? And Springsteen goes, no, fans are fine. And the kid goes, okay, so like, would you want to come back to my house and meet my parents? And Springsteen goes, okay. So at like 11:30 at night, this kid and his girlfriend drive back to this kid's house and walk in, and the mom's sitting there, and he's like, "Hey, Mom, I brought Bruce Springsteen." And he said the mom, her only reaction was, I need to make you something to eat. And she made him scrambled eggs. And Springsteen's like, so the next thing I know, I'm sitting in this kid's kitchen with his parents eating scrambled eggs, just talking about life and music and whatever else. And so the guy doing the interview says, well, that's pretty bizarre. That's a funny story, whatever. And Springsteen goes, yeah. And he goes, of course, the fun thing about it is I've gone back to their house every year we've played St. Louis, and I have eggs every single year.
That is amazing. Here, this kid thought he was just going there to make out with his girlfriend, and Bruce Springsteen all of a sudden is at his house.
Apparently, for literally 20-plus years, every time he tours in St. Louis, he goes back to the kids. Obviously, no longer living at home. Right. Goes back to the mom's house. It's now just the mom, amazing. And has scrambled eggs with her. Yeah, Betty. He is not coming in here for scrambled eggs.
Betty, I thought in '98 the eggs were a little bit better. I think you've lost your fastball here.
Bit drier than I remember
over the years. Yeah, a bit drier on that end. I do have before we get into the Colts conversation, Jake, I've got kind of a dumb Brickyard question that I was going to ask you. So, rundown of the weekend. We have a Indy Next, which used to be the Indy Lights race today, right? Later today?
Correct. So,
and then tomorrow we've got an IndyCar race and a Verizon Series race with NASCARs. And then Sunday, we've got the Cup race. We're so used, or at least I'm used to, in the month of May, like each of these Indy cars throughout the month of May, they have their garage. And that's, part of the access and part of the, oh yeah, let's go see what's going on in the garage. And it's really cool to see them working on the cars, et cetera, et cetera. Where in the world do they park all these cars over the next 3 days?
That's a great question. So, that's a great question. You have four series that are going to be there this weekend, as you'd mentioned. The IndyCar Series, the Indy Next, which was formerly known as Indy Lights, the NASCAR Cup cars, and then the NASCAR Xfinity cars, which is their equivalent of Indy Next. They utilize the garages between, if in the month of May you walk through the garage area, just behind the garage area, there's that area where all of the haulers are, the semis. Those are used, that area is used as a temporary garage area. The regular garages are obviously used. And then the big one that people don't realize, the Formula One garages. So when you're walking like from the pagoda, if you walk from the pagoda back towards the garage area and all those things along the side, sometimes they have merchandising and they look like suites. Mm-hmm. That's the original Formula One garages. They utilize those as well. So they use all three spaces. In terms of which one's which, I always forget which series is designated to which area. But today, practice for the Indy cars begins at 9 o'clock. Gates open at 8 o'clock today. So basically today it's all open wheel. There's no NASCAR activity today. It is IndyCar and Indy Next, capped off 10 minutes before the hour, 5 o'clock, with the Indy Next race. That will run until roughly 6 o'clock today. And then tomorrow it is Katie bar the door. I mean, tomorrow's like full day of activity. Gates opening at 7 o'clock. Practices beginning at 9:30 for the Cup cars. Then the IndyCar race itself is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The Xfinity race is after that at 5:30. That'll probably run until about 7:30. And then on Sunday, the Cup race. So it's a full weekend of activity. Derek, I look forward to, as I had mentioned, I auctioned off my spotter position to help out with the heart hospital for the kids at Riley Hospital. And I'm very thankful to Derek, who a native of Mississippi, but he came out to the race for the first time with his family last year, loved it, so wanted to do it this weekend as well. So he bought the spotter position. I met up with him yesterday. We're going to have a lot of fun. He's doing a 2-seater ride today as well, so we got him hooked up with that. And my understanding is he's a Braves fan, made a bet with Mark, and Mark, as a result,
18-pack of PBR, which I thought was just a 6-pack, and you came in with the whole 18-pack.
Did the Cubs sweep?
No, they won 2 out of 3. They lost the first game 8-0, and they won the last 2. So
throw a couple of those in the freezer, Mark.
I mean, Kevin's got the PBR hat.
I mean, it is
You've got the PBR 18 rack. We have everything but the PBR party, which is not the 9 o'clock announcement.
I rocked this hat. I had no idea, Mark, that you'd be receiving such a glorious gift today.
Well, he said I sent it with Jake, and I was like, okay, there's a 6-pack. And then Jake walks in with an 18-pack. He's like, here you go.
Yeah, Brickyard Weekend's here.
I know. I might throw a couple in the fridge. Should bust them out at 9 o'clock maybe.
You know, the other thing that I was scrolling through last night as I had issues sleeping, Jake, you haven't been too active, right, with your Instagram? I remember you saying that you created an Instagram, but that was just for potential threads taking off, right?
All I ever see is Britney Spears every time I go on it.
Boy, Mark was all over that.
Nothing wrong with that.
I haven't
you guys
figured
have a
out the
side text
Instagram.
going on about that. We had a Insta story 8 hours ago. So what would that be? Just before midnight.
11? Yeah, 11:15.
We had a Insta story from Jonathan Taylor, and the Insta story was just a very cryptic black screen with the eye emoji on said Insta story. I can't recall too many social media posts from Taylor really at all since he tweeted, about debunking the back rumor that was going on for about 24 hours there. Care to try and read anything into a Jonathan Taylor Insta story with the
Look
eye
who's
emoji?
back. That's what he's saying. Look who's back.
Back as in
Look who's returning.
pen to paper.
Look who realized that he's only made $6 million in his career and getting fined $50,000 a day ain't worth it. Look who realized he has no leverage.
Well, technically, he's not getting fined.
Well, not yet, yeah.
Ask Shane Steichen yesterday. We did not see Jonathan Taylor out at practice again on Thursday. Asked Steichen, when do you expect him back? And Steichen said that expectation is next week. So right now, the Colts will board a plane to Buffalo later today. They will play their preseason game, their opener, coming up tomorrow afternoon. Nothing on Sunday, nothing on Monday from an on-field activity standpoint. They will practice Tuesday morning. We'll be out there. That'll be our final show out there here for training camp. And then Wednesday and Thursday are those joint practices with the Bears. I followed up with Steichen and said, okay, do you then expect him to practice next week? And Steichen would not go there just yet. So
what do you make of the big eye emoji?
Again, there's times where I look in the mirror and think, gosh, Kevin, is part of your job really to decipher Insta stories that literally have eye emojis and a black screen? And I'm like, gosh, this is unfortunate. I don't really know. Taylor's never struck me as a dude that would send kind of cryptic social media posts. But then again, there's times where I'm like, is this agent controlling his social media? Because I feel like there's been some activity on there that leads me to think that could be happening there. I've mentioned for the past few, I guess really this week, Jake, I think we're starting to reach breaking points in this Taylor story. Like from the Colts side of it and from the Taylor side of it. We are less than a month away from the regular season opener. So if Taylor wants to be ready for week 1, he's got to get out there. And then from the Colts side of it, they continue to be very banged up at running back. They obviously have signed a veteran. They, by national reports out there, made an offer for Kareem Hunt as well. So clearly both sides, I think the Colts are starting to have some action on this. In Taylor's side of it, if he wants to be ready week 1, you'd think he's got to practice pretty soon. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest with you. I don't think it means necessarily pen to paper on a contract. But again, if he wants to play week 1 and wants to be off the physically unable to perform list, I think he's got to practice in the next 10 days.
I was going to send out an emoji of just a black screen with an eyeball and then just put 9 a.m. for our big announcement.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that would work. That would work. It didn't look like anybody was very close in guessing the big announcement based off the scroll that I was doing.
Correct. But in an hour and 41 minutes, they'll find out, right?
Yeah. Again, I don't think we're going to spend 2 hours on trying to decipher what Jonathan Taylor was inferring or what that means per se. Jake, do you think the eye emoji means, hey, I've got multiple teams out there that have told my agent they'll give me a multi-year deal and this trade is about to go through? Because he's made a trade request.
I mean, that's possible too.
Seemingly, if you ask Taylor what would be the best case scenario for you right now, don't you think Taylor would say, I get traded rather than I return to that team?
But the other question is this. Does Jim Irsay, and I don't think this is the case, okay, so I'm going to answer my own question before I ask it, which is probably bad radio, but Does Jim Irsay prohibit Chris Ballard from trading Jonathan Taylor strictly to save face because Jim Irsay was so adamant that there's no way he'll be traded?
Gosh, I hope not. It's a fair question to ask, Jake, but I think I said this in the Monday after the trade request was made. Jake, the Colts are not in a position as a franchise to make statements. They're a 4-win football team with a rookie quarterback. You can't play the whole picket game of, hey, we're standing over here with our billboard and we're going to hold it up and we've got, see our feet dug in the ground right now. That is the line in the sand and we're not crossing it. The Colts aren't in a place as a franchise to do that, even though they'd like to, even though Jim Irsay wants to carry this torch for owners. If Jonathan Taylor, which it'd be quite the stance for Taylor to take, but if he is saying he wants to be traded and you have no thinking, belief, plan, whatever you want to call it, to give him a multi-year deal moving forward, I think you have to get return on that investment, and you have to trade him. That's just me. If both sides are as dug in as seemingly they are.
I sent a tweet the other night that I think people misunderstood, and it's probably a moot point now, Kevin, but I haven't been on the mic, so it's the first chance to explain it. What became peculiar to me, and Michael and I and Bob were talking about this on the way to the Bruce Springsteen concert, which was probably where the epiphany really became more clear to me. When they were discussing things with Kareem Hunt, and they, by all account, even discussed numbers and figures with him, if the running back position is one that is not of enough importance to give big-time money to a second-round pick that you had at running back that has played well for you, then why is it of enough importance to select the one guy that most goes against the things with which you profess about your assessment of talent?
I am nodding my head.
And people reached out to me and they're like, oh, like one guy, and one guy's like, oh, so you don't believe in second chances? Was your whole thing about the Wheeler Mission lunch is all a farce? No. Kareem Hunt's had his second chance, first off.
Well, the NFL is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah. I mean, do I believe in him getting a chance to make a living and be a free man? And sure, but it doesn't mean it has to be my team or my city or whatever that extends that. I mean, I don't have any ownership of the Colts or any involvement, but I'm not the one. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm not the one that is publicly telling people that character is one of the key things that I look at and that I don't want distraction. And you bring a guy that's on videotape beating up a woman onto your team, there's going to be whether the Colts are naive enough to think it, I don't know, but there would have been distraction with that. So why are you – there are a gabillion – literally, like there are 1,000 Honda Accords in the used car lot, so why would you go with the one that might occasionally at a stoplight backfire when you're trying not to wake up the neighborhood at 5:30 in the morning?
Something that Mark and I were talking about yesterday, Jake, I didn't feel the need to, go down kind of the moral path again. I think, I think you made the stance pretty clear the other day on Kareem Hunt. I tried to talk much more in a football sense with this move yesterday. Is Kareem Hunt even good?
That's a great question, yeah.
He's a 28-year-old running back that just averaged 3.8 yards per carry. I said the stat to Mark yesterday, and obviously to all of our listeners as well. Jake, there were more than 160 players in the NFL last year. 160. More than 160 that had a better yards per carry than Kareem Hunt. And he's running behind a great offensive line in Cleveland. One that has helped Nick Chubb become one of the best running backs in the NFL. So it's not even like if you just want to put the Kareem Hunt off the field story, lie, issues to the side. Let's just do that. Let's just talk about him purely as a football player. I think you could make a pretty strong argument that he doesn't even necessarily check that box for you. So that's what kind of adds to the confusion on that front. Again, the big Colts topic from yesterday, though, was Anthony Richardson getting the start tomorrow in Buffalo. We'll chat a lot about that on today's show. We saw C.J. Stroud make his debut with the Texans last night. Certainly wasn't like glowing by any means in his 2 series of work. I would definitely like to see Anthony Richardson get more than 11 plays in 2 series.
4 passes, right?
2 of 4 with a pick was C.J. Stroud. I would definitely like to see Anthony Richardson play a little bit longer than that, but we'll certainly chat about that. And some things to watch for as the Colts get their preseason schedule underway. Greg Rakestraw at 8, Matt Taylor, I guess a little bit after 9 o'clock, because we've got a big announcement coming at 9, and it is a glorious Friday here. Weather-wise for the Brickyard, Jake, good today, good Sunday, right? Saturday, a little iffy. Is that what I'm seeing?
That's correct. 30 or 40% chance of rain. Keep in mind they do use, as they're now known as, wet weather tires for both series. All the series. They will run in the rain. So long as there's not standing puddled water on the road course, they will run. And you get the old rooster tails.
So they will, unless it's snow lightning, they're going to run.
By the way, Mark is currently getting absolutely blasted.
Oh, no,
by the
I'm
sunrise.
ducking behind this right now. The shades are getting shut.
Mark, how about that 2-minute period yesterday at Grand Park?
Oh, my God.
The sun was literally out for 2 minutes yesterday morning, Jake, and there was like a 2-minute period where I thought Mark was just...
Well, now you know, Mark, why you heard me mention on the air. I mean, I know you were always back here, but when we are out there, why I wear 2 sunglasses.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's literally right at your eye level as it's coming up.
I could
over the
not see a
fields.
thing. I was like, I can't see my computer screen. I can't see anything. And then it went away, and we never saw it again.
Yeah, but this is a glorious looking sunrise.
It is.
I'll say that.
It is. Jake Quarry's back with us. I'm Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton with us as well to close out the week with an 18-pack of PBR, by the way, to close out the week. Kevin and Query here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, the big news from the Colts yesterday, Anthony Richardson. He is going to be under center with the first unit coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Shane Steichen said about around a quarter for the starting unit, but a case-by-case situation with players and how long they will play. Here was Anthony Richardson yesterday on his goals in his first preseason game.
Just consistency, I know I can run, I know I can pass, so whatever coach calls, I'm going to try to make sure I do my job the right way and just be consistent with it all.
Jake, it sounds like Buffalo will play their starters, not Josh Allen, not Stephon Diggs, but they're going to play a good amount of their starters. I think at times we forget a little bit, Buffalo was the second-ranked defense in the NFL last season from a scoring defense standpoint. So for however long they decide to keep those guys in there, should be a decent test for Anthony Richardson.
I mean, we saw last night with C.J. Stroud, the sooner that you can kind of learn the speed of the NFL, the better it's going to be because it is different than college. Did you watch Stroud last night?
I did, yep. 2 of 4 with a pick, played 11 plays and 2 series.
And I think the biggest thing is, like, if you look at C.J. Stroud last night, he's used to, and this is what takes a long time to get used to. I think it took Trevor Lawrence a year to figure this out, a year and a half, actually. And that is the windows that you threw in college, and you are used to throwing in college, C.J. Stroud. Every guy he threw to was 2 steps ahead of his defender. NFL, not the case. You got a much shorter window to throw the football, and that definitely takes time to get used to. Major League Baseball last night. Pirates over the Braves, 7-5. It was the Phillies tripling up the Nationals 6-2. Dodgers over the Rockies. Guardians beat the Blue Jays 4-3. Cute Fella, 5-4 over the Houston Astros. Detroit blanking the Twins 3-0. And the Boston Red Sox 2-0 over the Kansas City Royals. Cardinals did beat the Rays 5-2. And the Indianapolis Indians, not once but twice, beaten by the Nashville Sounders. But Razor Shines was there.
15-1, I think was the combined score.
That is
in
correct,
those
yes.
2 games. Sam Fritz chatted with Razor Shines
Did he?
yesterday. Yeah, he was very excited about that. Speaking of excited, the Fever, they get a W, a rare win over the last month or so for the Fever. 91-73 over the Lynx last night over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Kelsey Mitchell with 24, Aaliyah Boston 15-13. They've got a game coming up against the Liberty Sunday afternoon. And Jake, a little rundown for us. Brickyard weekend today. You said primarily or pretty much a full IndyCar day out there.
Today is in fact IndyCar day because you have qualifying. So the IndyCar race is tomorrow. The Gallagher Grand Prix is tomorrow as part of the doubleheader, along with the Xfinity Series that runs on Saturday, that being tomorrow on the road course. But today, in terms of practice and qualifying, the open wheel cars, the Indy cars, have the track to themselves. Between IndyCar and Indy Next, which is formerly known as Indy Lights, things get underway this morning in the 9 o'clock hour, and then qualifying for IndyCar in the mid-afternoon and the Indy Next race to close things out with the gates closing at 6 o'clock tonight. 4:50, by the way, is when that race gets underway. So full day today, full day tomorrow as well. And big announcement on this show in 84 minutes.
We do. We'll do that coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. Greg Rakestraw at 8, as he will be on the TV call coming up tomorrow for the Colts and Bills. That is a 1 o'clock kick from Buffalo. On the other side, we'll chat about what to watch for in that game. And again, Anthony Richardson getting his first start. How did he look at practice yesterday? And we did see one change to a position group that has a lot of eyes on it here this season. We'll do that on the other side. Kevin and Query here on a beautiful Friday in Indy.
Inquiry on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Jake, looking ahead to tomorrow, it'll be a 1 o'clock kick from Buffalo. And for those that are in the Westfield area today, tomorrow, or Saturday, Horseshoe. That is Horseshoe. That is your code word of the next 3 days for Quack Daddy Donuts.
Heck yeah.
So,
Wear your Colts gear in, you get 10% off, right?
no better thing to do on a weekend. You will appease the children a whole lot with $3 off a dozen donuts. Again, code word is Horseshoe each of the next 3 days at Quack Daddy Donuts,
Not a Fruity
located
Pebble donut, man.
right there, 161st and Spring Mill. Kids back to school, reward them, the first weekend. Perfect idea.
Reward them. Send
Right
the kids
there.
off to school and go get yourself some donuts.
Yeah. They only had 9 donuts, actually, in the dozen today. So we'll be up there on Tuesday. It is our final show from training camp. Were you surprised at all about Anthony Richardson getting the start, Jake?
No, I think that, look, the Colts right now, everything this season is about him, period. And so you've got to do what you can to get him as acclimated to the NFL as possible. Now, what will be interesting to me, Kevin, will be if he struggles, do they continue to push that, or do they pull him back a little bit to allow him to not get overly rattled too early? Like C.J. Stroud struggled last night. If C.J. Stroud goes out and has 3 more performances starting out of the box where that's what it's like, then all of a sudden, do you get that PTSD for a quarterback? Do you have to baby him a little bit? Yeah, you do. But you also have to be willing to push him. And right now they're pushing, and we'll find out whether or not they pull in the reins a little bit. But no, I think it's the right call.
A couple thoughts. When the Colts drafted Anthony Richardson at 4 overall, that first night, they seemed open-minded, in particular Shane Steichen and Jim Irsay, to playing him early. Their actions have said that throughout training camp. I mean, we're 10 practices into camp. I want to say he's got 100 starting reps compared to like 75 for Minshew. Those are pretty unofficial numbers, but it's a rough estimate. Obviously, he's going to get the look with the starters coming up on Saturday. So I think that is an important part of a franchise. At times, you draft a guy, he's a major project, and then you're not willing to invest or commit to the project enough. And I think early on, the Colts are clearly doing that with Richardson. Second thought I had, and I had this thought watching C.J. Stroud last night, Jake. C.J. Stroud played 2 series and had 11 snaps total before he exited. I would probably like to see Anthony Richardson double that workload on Saturday. I know Shane Steichen said the starters will exit around a quarter of play. I mean, unless you have some 10-play scoring drives, I'd like to see Richardson in there even when you go to that second unit. And I know there will be people out there, whoa, you want him playing behind the second unit offensive line? But I don't think Quentin Nelson's going to be out there for as many plays as Anthony Richardson should be out there. If you want to get him a good amount of quantity reps in the preseason, you're going to have to play him behind a second unit offensive line. So that is something I'm curious about tomorrow. It's when guys like Ryan Kelly, guys like Quentin Nelson exit, do you keep Richardson in there? Now, having said that, last year in this very game, the preseason opener, you played your offensive line and your starters. You played Matt Ryan. You played Michael Pittman. You played them around 20 snaps, which is a big number for a starting group in the first preseason game. Now, as we've talked about this week, the offensive line was, I'd say, pretty darn poor in that game and ended up being a precursor of what we saw all year long. So obviously that'll be a storyline to watch. But that's something, Jake, I'm going to have my eyes on. Do we see Richardson play into that second quarter? Is he one of those guys that you feel like you should leave in there?
One of the things about Richardson that I'm curious your take on, Kevin, and there's a level of refreshing about this, and I don't know how to word it so it doesn't come off the wrong way, but I'll try here. Either way I word it, Regent Brian will let me know it's the wrong one. Richardson has about him a refreshing level of like a fun that he's bringing to things. He seems very loose. He seems pretty relaxed. You watch him, and in between throws, he's kind of dancing around or hopping around a little bit. I mean, that's not to say he's taking it lightly. He seems pretty focused, but he doesn't seem overly stressed yet at the position of being an NFL quarterback. Is there an element of almost too much so? And that sounds like I'm being critical of him. That's not it. I guess what I'm asking is this. Does it almost seem like, and there's a fine line here, is he naive of the tsunami that's coming his way, or is he just confident and comfortable enough to feel like he's got the proper wetsuit and he's going to be just fine no matter how big the tsunami is? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, and I guess I'll go back to something I said after the draft, Jake. I listen to Anthony Richardson and I get some Benedict Mathurin vibes in an uber-confident individual. To your point, if you go watch him at practice, this is a dude that's pretty excited to play football.
Yeah.
Him and Gardner Minshew are laughing, high-fiving, jumping, dancing, Sam Ehlinger, same way, all of that. But then you also hear him in press conference settings and certainly behind the scenes. You know, the Michael Pittman comment from Report Day, Michael Pittman, when they were in Florida for that 3-day get-together with quarterback and skilled players, Michael Pittman saying, I don't see how this dude can fail based off how hard he works. I think he has a very good grasp of being comfortable and confident in himself, but also can fully acknowledge what obviously we all saw at Florida. 6-6 as a starter, 53% passer. He needs a lot of work. And they're words, but those are the words we have to go off of right now. But I don't think for 1 second you're getting a Johnny Manziel, I never turned on my Microsoft Surface to watch film. I don't think you're getting any of that. I think he knows that he has got to put in a lot of work to get to the level that matches, you know, the combine traits that obviously he kind of set the NFL world on fire with.
Johnny Manziel, man. What did I just read the other day? Wasn't he just in the news the other day?
Have you watched the Netflix thing yet on him?
No.
You would you would enjoy it.
Oh,
it's,
he admitted to going through like a depression, right?
Yes. It was pretty eye-opening. Mark, you have watched it, correct?
I have not watched it.
Oh,
My brother watched it. No, I've been watching Quarterback and then Hard Knocks, but I have not watched that one yet.
How is Hard Knocks? I have not watched it.
I thought it was really good. Really good. Obviously, it's a bit of a Rodgers PR show in the first episode. Mm-hmm. For a guy who said he didn't want the cameras there. He was in the episode quite a bit. I also thought it was kind of funny from like a viewing perspective. The first shot is him walking out to the first practice for the Jets, and the fans like start realizing, oh, Aaron Rodgers is coming out, and they start a Rodgers chant, and then you see Zach Wilson in the background just like slinging the ball, probably like, oh, wonder what that's like.
Looking in the crowd for moms. Yeah. Any moms out there?
If Zach Wilson has any chance of a second lease in the NFL, maybe this is the best thing for him, to have all of the attention elsewhere and let him just do his thing, right?
Yeah. One thing I'll mention on the Manziel front, and I think it's totally unfair to compare Manziel to Richardson, but I mean just the hype for Manziel, the SEC love fest with him. I thought that I don't even know what you call it, documentary. It was about an hour and 20 minutes. The opening scene is of him going into the Texas A&M Hall of Fame, and basically all these boosters, all these athletic supporters are in a, you know, ballroom type area. And Jake, it would be like IU basketball fans when Romeo Langford committed to IU.
Right.
The obsession, the love fest, there was part of me, it's like, well, no duh, he failed. Like, you just get caught up in that. And I think with Richardson, he's moved his family here. He talked about it yesterday. He's like, yeah, fortunately, my family can't make it to the Buffalo game because my little brother's got one of his first games. I think his little brother's like, I don't know if he's a freshman at Westfield, but he's going to Westfield schools. Like, I just don't think he is going to get caught up in it. Now, of course, you don't truly know until you go through all of that and you see the commas and you see the zeros and you see your name on the side of this billboard and on the side of that stadium, et cetera, et cetera. But I think mentally he's wired in the right way that you would want. Now, fair warning, I think, to Colts fans that are going to get their first look at him on Saturday. We saw it yesterday. When this dude misses, Jake, it is a fastball that can airmail high, and there were, I would say, 2 to 3 balls yesterday. He was 5 of 12 on the day. There were 2 or 3 passes yesterday where he just rifled some 98, 99 mile per hour fastballs and boom, right off his guy's hands. And the old saying of, if it hits your hands, you got to catch it. Boy, you watch Richardson sling it. there are times where it's like, dude, you're not giving your guys a chance because you're in the fast batting cage and your guys need it to be dialed down a little bit if you're going to be an accurate passer.
During the drive up to Springsteen on Wednesday, Bob Kravitz, Michael Weir, and I were playing sports trivia, and Kravitz asked this question of Johnny Manziel, Kevin, which I will gladly and boastfully say it took me a second to jog my memory, and then I got the answer. The draft pick that the Cleveland Browns used to take Johnny Manziel was acquired how?
Was that Trent Richardson trade?
Yeah. So they traded Trent Richardson for the rights to draft Johnny Manziel.
Seems like a very accurate noise to play there, Mark.
That was from which side?
That's a no-win. That is a no-win trade, my friend.
So the Colts also, in terms of what they received, was what?
Do we call that a lose-lose?
That is the lose-lose trade,
That's not
man.
Sabonis for Halliburton and Heald. That's not the win-win.
Correct.
For those just waking up, Anthony just messaged me
In my opinion, that's
That's what both sides said about that trade.
a what-the-hell reaction to the Jonathan Taylor eye emoji Insta story from last night. Again, you could look at it two things. I think Jake alluded to it earlier in the 7 o'clock hour. It means, hey, I'm back. And for what it's worth, Shane Steichen said he expects him to be back next week at Grand Park, not practicing. Shane wouldn't go there just yet, but to be back. Or, if you want to look at it from the Taylor camp, they clearly have made a trade request. And if he's throwing out an eye emoji, maybe he is happy about what he's hearing on the trade request front. Don't have strong conviction on either of those answers I just mentioned, but might as well throw them out there because that's where we're at with the story.
By the way, Bob Kravitz just wrote a column that he's about to release regarding our road trip and has the following to say. I thought you guys would probably – I would like to know if you agree or disagree with this. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little offended he didn't reach out to us for a comment.
He says, road tripping with query requires thought. It's like Jeopardy in hell, except you don't have to answer in the form of a question. Thoughts?
Yeah, it sounds like he hit the nail on the head. That sounds spot on to me.
See, our road trips consist of like the 4 or 5 minute breaks that we have. Where just, you guys won't believe this, all right, I'm going to pose this outrageous question to you. That's pretty much, so we get like snippets of the road trip. We don't get the 3-hour version that Bob
God,
got. I guess 6 hours Bob got. 6 hours in one day. Did Bob fall asleep by Fair Oaks Farm on the way home?
Now, how about this? I don't know if he did not fall asleep. Bob was great on the way home. He says, here's an interesting piece of trivia, Query says again and again, and I'll be damned if he doesn't have an interesting piece of trivia.
This is the windmills?
I did not do the windmill game with them. You guys know me all too well, right?
Yeah.
We know all your tricks.
Speaking of which, we have a big announcement at 9.
We do. We have a big announcement coming up at 9 o'clock, so we'll get to that. And then Matt Taylor's going to join us a little bit after that. Greg Rakestraw on the other side. It'll be him. It'll be Rick Venturi. It'll be Lara Overton on the TV call tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll chat with Rick before he departs to Buffalo. Kevin and Query on a beautiful Friday here in Indy.
Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline. He'll be on the TV call each of the next 2 Saturdays for the Colts. That will be Greg Rakestraw with Rick Venturi and Lara Overton. Rake, feel free to let me know what number year this is for you doing preseason TV. I would venture to guess tomorrow will be your most watched preseason game.
There is a good chance of that, although, by the time I started, so this is year number 6, number 5 if you don't count 2020 since we didn't have preseason games that year. So my first year of doing this was the Andrew Luck kind of comeback year of 2018. So, there was a lot of interest then. Clearly the next year there was a surprising amount of interest that was generated when it was, revealed he was going to retire during a game. But yes, there'll be a good amount of eyeballs checking out Anthony Richardson's first snaps as a Colt tomorrow afternoon.
Rick, do you think he will exit when the Quentin Nelsons of the world will exit? Based off what Shane Steichen said yesterday, he used the phrase case by case for how long starters will stay in the game. Do you think once the bulk of that first unit goes to the bench, that means Anthony Richardson's day will be over as well?
I think to some degree that's a safe assumption, but I also think that potentially those starters would play a little bit more than normal, knowing the absolute need of you got to get Anthony Richardson a few more reps. Generally, that's the case for rookies, that rookies will play longer, and knowing you want to protect your investment as the 4th pick in the draft, maybe that means that those regulars will be playing a little bit longer come tomorrow afternoon.
Greg, I've made this point a lot on this show, but I want your perspective on it. I go a little bit, admittedly, by long conversations I've had, say, with Rick Venturi or people that have been around the NFL. But I think one of the things that is difficult for young quarterbacks that are getting used to the NFL, and I think C.J. Stroud saw this last night. C.J. Stroud when he was at Ohio State, certainly Trevor Lawrence when he was at Clemson, undoubtedly. And a lot of Alabama quarterbacks, this would be the case. They are used to, in college, throwing to eventual NFL wide receivers that are playing against college cornerbacks. So they are the windows are big and the receivers are open. I don't know that Anthony Richardson in the SEC on a down Florida team probably saw that as much. So is it possible that the learning curve of windows, even though it is there for Richardson and he's going to have to get used to that, it may not be as big a gap as it is for others because he still had to throw to tighter windows than some of the quarterbacks that we're talking about?
There is something to be said for that. There is always something to being said for playing against the caliber of athlete and competition that you would see every game as part of the Southeastern Conference. There is always going to be an adjustment period, and we've seen that at times during the course of training camp. Kind of figuring out, hey, when do I throw the ball? When do I make this read? I still remember times where a defensive back would kind of turn and say, hey, buddy, the ball's got to be out by then. You don't have that much time to kind of make that decision and make that throw at this level. I get your point, Jake, completely, and understand exactly what you're saying because, yes, it's not like he had such an advantage with the talent around him that, say, some other quarterbacks have had at their various programs.
Ray, given and by the way, Greg Rakestraw is with us. Obviously, it's a big high school football night with scrimmages and then things beginning week 1 starting next week. So that'll be what dominates our conversation a lot here in the fall. But right now, Rake has got your TV call for the Colts coming up again each of the next 2 Saturdays. Rake, for those that are about to experience Anthony Richardson for the first time and haven't really seen him at Florida, haven't been out to Grand Park, I almost have described him like Adam Dunn for the Reds. There might be a few balls that get hit into the Ohio River, and those will be played on SportsCenter, and those will go on social media. But he also might be, 1 for 4 in that game with the ball in the Ohio River and then a strikeout where his bat flies into row 27 behind the home dugout. How would you describe what the Richardson experience has looked like when you've been out at Grand Park?
There is something to that. And for those like you and I that like to see, if not every practice, then pretty close to it, the throws down the field are jaw-dropping. When he throws a quick slant, the receiver has no choice but to catch it because it's going to go through their chest if they don't. But that's also not to say that he can't throw a touch pass or adjust his arm slot to kind of get around a defender, because I've seen that in practice as well. It seems like the throw that he's having the most trouble with right now is seeing kind of that 10 to 15 yard out, that kind of sideline pattern. That one tends to be high. Trying to figure out a way to kind of dial that one in seems to be one of the throws that he's having a little bit of issue with. And again, like I said, it's kind of that read and when to kind of make that throw or when to make that decision. And the thing that even he touched on yesterday was, hey, I want to get hit a couple of times because obviously I know in a training camp practice I'm not going to be hit. And that way you have a better judgment of exactly what is he going to do from a rushing standpoint. I think you said yesterday, is that a gain of 5? Is that a gain of 18? We're going to find out to a lesser degree starting tomorrow. So there will be plays that make you drop your jaw, and there'll be plays that make you smack your forehead. And hopefully for Colts fans, there's more of the former and not the latter.
Greg Rakestraw is our guest. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. You, of course, can see and hear him during the Colts preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. Greg, so much attention, obviously, understandably, almost entirely on Anthony Richardson, but other areas, other positions, or other players that you actually, maybe you personally aren't even the most curious about, but you get the impression that the Colts are. What jumps out?
It's interesting that this is not a training camp, and there have been the three big discussions, obviously, quarterback, JT, Shaquille Leonard, that it has kind of blotted out everything else. If you look big picture, I'm not sure how many starting position battles we're going to have. I kind of have a good idea what I think the receivers are that are going to make this football team. I know what the starters are going to look like defensively. Obviously, we have question marks with how young the defensive backfield is other than Kenny Moore. But if everybody's healthy, I kind of know the guys that I think, at least from a starting standpoint, are going to be the ones out there on September the 10th. So one of the common questions, we always have this time of year, kind of, who's popped or who's the guy that's always, around the football making plays. There's a guy or two I can suggest, but maybe we're not watching that as much. If you're looking for a position battle, and I'm not exactly sure how many and who are making the team, I would suggest the tight end position.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, as it pertains to tomorrow's game, Mo Cox has been hurt. Jelani Woods has been hurt. Will Mallory, who is a rookie that maybe has a chance to make a team where it's kind of I would not say if it's a crowded room of veterans, but it's a crowded room of guys you kind of either drafted or brought onto the roster the last 2 or 3 years. There's 9 tight ends on the roster of the 90-man roster right now. That may be the best position battle throughout the course of training camp. But unfortunately, injuries of the nagging variety maybe kind of take away a bit of that drama as it pertains to tomorrow's game.
Yeah, yesterday, Kylan Granson was out there and practicing, he's done every single practice here in camp in the spring. But the other 4 guys you'd probably put around him as atop that depth chart, they all were out. Mo Cox, Drew Ogletree, Jelani Woods, and Will Mallory, the rookie. So I'm very curious to see how that group is going to play out over the next couple of weeks. I asked Shane Steichen this on Tuesday about Shaquille Leonard and if he'd play in the preseason. It sounded like that was a little bit more of a debate, and they hadn't committed to that as a staff. I should have followed up yesterday. I just kind of totally spaced. Do you think we'll see Leonard tomorrow or at all in the preseason?
I do think we'll see Shaq in the preseason at some point. I don't know if it's tomorrow. Maybe you save that for the home fans on Saturday. Obviously, you've got the workouts against the Bears on Wednesday and Thursday. Maybe that changes a little bit. And the need to play starters to get Anthony Richardson reps on offense doesn't necessarily exist on defense. So maybe he plays on Saturday and we don't see him again other than those preseason practices with the Bears and the Eagles until September the 10th. I think you need to see him for just a set of plays. 3, 4, play, something along those lines, just to have that simulation of game experience. It doesn't have to be long. It's almost like the veteran, like the Frank Gore running back status. Give him a couple of touches, get him off the field. I think you need that at some point in time. Maybe that's tomorrow. Maybe that's next Saturday.
Greg, when I recently had to go and retake algebra, like the first week or two of it, I was like, this isn't bad. Like, I think I can grasp this. Everything seems okay. And then, like, week 3, they threw the kitchen sink at me and all hell broke loose. And I realize now the first week or two was just designed to kind of get me comfortable before the textbook really opened up. How much of the playbook do the Colts go with here in week 1? Is this strictly going to be the first 2 weeks that I had algebra, or are they going to start throwing some trigonometry in there all of a sudden?
Jake, when you work at the dairy bar at the Indiana State Fair, what's the most common flavor you're handing out?
That would be
curveball meat.
And I will. And by the way,
right there.
Greg, thank you for mentioning that. If anybody wants to work the dairy bar today from 2 until 10, $100 per person, tweet me or text me at 523-9288. I'll get you set up. 523-9288. Greg, I know you are friends with the American Dairy Association of Indiana, as am I. But that would be vanilla, by the way.
That is exactly what the game plan is going to be, and that's on let's ease Anthony Richardson into it. That is, we're not tipping our hand in terms of plays for teams to scout for the remainder of the regular season, and so yes, they're going to ease him into a certain degree. I think largely this is a simplified offense because it's everything about finding guys in open space. That's the way the NFL in the modern game works, which makes it easier for younger quarterbacks to come in and be impact players. So I'm not sure this is going to be an overly complicated playbook throughout the course of the year anyway. It's just kind of the way this offense works. But that is more so the case in the preseason just because nobody's running anything that complicated during the course of the preseason.
Okay, and Greg Rakestraw is with us 1 o'clock tomorrow. That is CBS 4, correct, Rake?
I think I'm on Fox 59 tomorrow. I could be wrong about that.
We should probably double check that. Mark, you mind looking that up, the TV call for tomorrow, but it'll be Rick Venturi and Lara Overton and Rake. Shifting gears a little bit.
CBS 4.
CBS 4.
My bad. Sorry.
Tomorrow.
Fox 59 for the Bears one.
There you go.
There you go. Rake, I have joked that Flory Badunga announcing his college coming up on Saturday. I guess that is tomorrow. I said he's doing that because he doesn't want to be a distraction to the Kokomo Wildcats soccer team and that season getting ready to start. Auburn, Duke, Kansas, Michigan. Any gut feel on the announcement coming tomorrow for one of the best players in high school?
Well, certainly the rumor mill has been running around Duke over the course of the last few days. I know the interest level for Michigan because we've talked about this on the air before, dating back to June. If you believe the internet chatter, he's going to be a Duke Blue Devil, but decisions have always changed and minds have always changed up to the last minute. But I'm also not surprised, kind of knowing those around Flory, that this announcement is being made at like the beginning of the school year so you can kind of get that question out of the way and he can just go be as normal of a high school kid as someone who's 6'9" with a pro future and has moved a half a world away and has gotten tens of thousands in terms of people that follow him and interest. As normal as that experience can be, that's what he's trying to have this fall into the basketball season.
Okay, Greg, here, you ready for my deep thoughts?
I am always ready for your deep thoughts, Jack Handy. Fire away.
Okay. What is the name of the basketball showcase classic and where Flory Badunga is making his announcement? Or what is the title?
Making his announcement, or the school that he is going to?
No, where he's making his announcement. He is making his announcement during the broadcast of a basketball classic that is sponsored by who? It's the Under Armour. It's the Under Armour. I don't know where it's being televised, but he is playing in a showcase game that's like the Under Armour Top 20 or whatever it is, right?
Gotcha.
Michigan wears Jordan Brand shoes. Kansas wears Adidas shoes, Duke wears Nike shoes, and Auburn wears Under Armour shoes. I have no idea if – what's that?
You're going to lean towards Auburn is what you're telling me.
Well, I'm saying
Bruce Pearl's shirt's off, baby.
It would be, to me, if I'm Under Armour and I'm putting on a showcase as a title showcase, and a kid is getting ready to use my showcase as the Under Armour shoe brand to announce his much anticipated and awaited college announcement, I am making sure ahead of time that he is going to an Under Armour school before I'm giving him my platform, my showcase, and my spotlight to tell people where he's going to go.
That is a tremendously well-made point. Maybe you're right. It could be the Auburn Tigers.
I have no intel. That just seemed to me like as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, hell, you would think that somebody within the marketing department of Under Armour would have thought that through, I would think.
I'm impressed with your shoe knowledge of major universities, Jake. That's impressive.
So there's another kid announcing at that has Notre Dame as a finalist. So should I start feeling good about Notre Dame considering the Under Armour?
Yes.
I'd like to point out that's back-to-back days you've talked Notre Dame basketball on the show in the month of August, by the way.
Okay, so Jake, hear me out on this. Rake thought I was getting punked yesterday. We had a caller, Brian, I believe was his name, right? Right, Mark?
Yeah.
Brian was calling in. Again, we were at Grand Park yesterday. Brian wanted to talk Notre Dame basketball. Jake, do you think I was getting punked or not?
Yes.
I was getting punked.
Yes.
The lather that he worked up, I mean...
I was pacing back and forth at Grand Park anticipating getting the caller on air, and then Sam Fritz said, bad news, the caller's dropped off air. And Rake said, 100% that is a prank call.
We are going to right now hear from every person in Central Indiana affiliated with this program that cares about Notre Dame basketball. Kevin, your name is?
Kevin Donahue Bowen.
This concludes this section of the program when we talk about those that care about Notre Dame basketball.
Rake, I am looking forward to tomorrow. I think obviously a lot of eyes will be on it for Anthony Richardson, but I think you and Rick and Lara do an outstanding job. I'm disappointed that we won't get to hear you for all 3 preseason games with that Amazon Prime broadcast coming up in a few Thursdays with the Philadelphia Eagles. But nonetheless, I will enjoy the next couple of Saturdays. So enjoy Buffalo, enjoy... where are you going? Anchor Bar? Are you going to dive into some wings tonight?
No, there's this neat little kind of like jazz, just kind of bourbony place that's literally like right next to the hotel, and so we end up going with the rule of convenience when traveling in Buffalo. But this is now the 3rd time in 5 years that we have opened the preseason in Buffalo, and unfortunately, like there's a little bit of rain and storms in the forecast tomorrow. But the high temperatures in the mid-70s, which has kind of been the case like the last couple of times we have been, I'll sign up to open up the preseason in Buffalo every year because also my broadcast booth location is at the 50-yard line. I'll take that every August and consider myself a lucky man.
I'm going to be so mad if it rains tomorrow. Like, haven't we had enough weather issues in Buffalo over the years? Like, just let Anthony Richardson have a normal weather atmosphere so we all can watch it.
Fingers crossed. Again, rain's one thing; storms are a different, animal. So we were there 4 years ago. It like stormed late in the afternoon. We kicked at 7 o'clock. It was not a problem. Last year was absolutely Chamber of Commerce, and keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for the best tomorrow.
Rake, safe travels, man. Thank you.
You got it, guys.
That's Greg Rakestraw right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. CBS 4 coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and then Fox 59, according to Mark, for that Bears game. And obviously, we will have the broadcast. Our coverage begins at 10 a.m. That will be Joe Wrights alongside Matt Taylor in the preseason. Joe Wright's going to join us on Monday, by the way.
That's
Chatted
cool.
with him at practice yesterday. Figured he'll be a good guy to chat about the O-line and recap preseason opener.
Joe Wright's seemingly is always pretty fired up for preseason football, right?
You've got your credit card out. I'm nervous.
I do.
What are you doing?
Would you really like to know?
Oh, boy. Caller just asked, because that finale...
Was that Brian about Notre Dame basketball?
No, it was not Brian. I'm sorry to disappoint you again. No, Greg called real quick, and I said, ooh, that's a good point. We'll bring it up. The preseason finale between the Eagles is a Prime Video game.
Right.
Does that mean that you have to have Prime to watch it? There's not going to be any local broadcast of that game?
Usually those are picked up by somebody, aren't
I was going to say, that's a great question. I kind of sided with Jake. Typically in the regular season, you see a local station pick that up here. But as I look on the Colts website right now, all I see is Prime Video.
Yeah. I see no alternative.
Mm-hmm. That is
And
8 o'clock coming up Thursday. Mark, you might know the answer better than I. I would think you get some free trial, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's 3 free trials for Amazon Prime for sure.
So you could get around that.
Right. And if you're really hankering for some Week 3 preseason action, I could see that happening. But I'm assuming that if it hasn't been announced yet, it'll come out sooner or later that one of the affiliates will pick it up for those who do not have it locally.
Do you guys, which preseason game of the 3? Tomorrow, a week from Saturday with the Bears, and that Thursday game with the Eagles. Which one do you think they play their starters the most?
Probably the Eagles game, don't you think? Isn't it usually Week 3? And I think that Shane Steichen would be the most familiar with the defensive tendencies or strengths of who you're playing, so that gives him the most honest assessment of what his team can do against them.
My only question on that, Jake, is yes, in years past when the NFL's had 4 preseason games, the Week 3 game has been known as the dress rehearsal. The reason why I asked the question is because the Bears game next Saturday comes after 2 joint practices. The Eagles game, 2 weeks from yesterday, comes after a joint practice. And typically, when teams do the joint sessions, they then don't play their starters that much, if at all, in the preseason games. So that's the only reason that I ask that. Usually it'd be like, oh yeah, it's got to be the Week 3 preseason game. But past precedent in the NFL says when you do the joint sessions, you consider those more of kind of like game settings. So I don't know. I don't have a great answer for it. I guess I asked the question and just let you guys answer it. But
the more I've thought about it, the more I think it would be this game. Because like I said, what you said with the joint practices, I can see them where they're like, well, they got a lot of work the last couple days. Here's a series or 2, and that's it. Whereas there's no joint practices ahead of time. And first real in-game action for your rookie quarterback, I would think you give him a little more rope.
And again, when the Bears come here next Wednesday, Thursday, Matt Eberflus is going to be much more willing to show, and I insert the joke here, Matt Eberflus and exotic defensive looks, but he's going to be much more willing to show stuff that he's saving for Week 4, Week 5 in the joint practices than he would be in the preseason game. Having said that, Anthony Richardson's still wearing a red jersey. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to about tomorrow. It's that you are taking the governor off, and you are taking that security blanket off of Richardson because now he can be hit. He can't just stand in the pocket for 6-7 seconds and, escape and know that no defensive player is going to touch him. He can just throw the ball away or scramble. Now, there are some ramifications to it.
When it comes to Anthony Richardson, have you seen so far? I have not, but you've watched it closer than I. Have you seen any signs or symptoms so far of a guy that even, is nerve-racked or head swiveled about what he's about to walk into?
It's a good question. I would say moments where you could maybe point to a tad bit of nerves. Like, again, yesterday I thought was his most erratic day in quite a while, and Shane Steichen had told him 2 minutes before practice started that he was starting on Saturday. Do those correlate?
Right.
I look at the nerves as the fastball just revs up even more. Like, that's the go-to. That's what he feels most comfortable doing. And when he starts to kind of try and dial it back, that's when he doesn't feel as comfortable. I think you could point to that. And then I think the biggest difference between him and Minshew is Minshew's more decisive. Again, he hits the singles, whereas Richardson probably holds on to it a little bit longer as he's looking for the home run.
By the way, you asked about my credit card. I had done the original free trial option for Bob Kravitz's column online.
Oh, the Substack?
On the Substack. Uh-huh. And the stuff he's turning out is really good. He's been at Colts camp every day. And then most importantly, he wrote a column that largely features me. So
you waited until Jake Query showed up in the little tease, and then you
I love me some me. I do love me some me. Who wouldn't? And
my name's in there. Let me pay money.
So I just bought a year's subscription.
Boo,
to his.
Dad was in the article. It's going up on the fridge, Boo.
That's right. Yeah. Boo was, when I got back at 3:30 in the morning, Boo's like, where you been?
Yeah, he had to be startled.
He was, man. He was like,
well, I'm always highly impressed with myself.
I am. How could you not be? Right?
Speaking of Jake, speaking of, I guess, myself and some others, we've got an announcement coming up at 9 o'clock. I would call it a pretty major
I would say it's of significance, no?
Yeah, I would say. We'll share that coming up at 9. Matt Taylor will join us a little bit later in the 9 o'clock hour, but we'll do that coming up here in a little over a half hour. Before we get to that, let's hit a morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Pretty quiet day in Major League Baseball from a local team standpoint, and by that I'm being very selfish. I pretty much mean the Reds, the Cubs, and the Brewers, because at this point, Lord knows I don't care about my A's.
What? No, why not?
Oh, well, you jumped off the wagon already? That's
Mark,
fair.
I'm still disappointed one of those
fair weather
PBRs
fan.
has not gone in the freezer.
There's
Yet.
3 in the fridge. What do you mean?
I noticed you've got the PBR. You cracked it open.
Yeah, I put 3 in the fridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, you did that rather discreetly.
I walked right past you, Kevin. I'm not a ghost.
Orioles win, Jake.
Orioles did win,
Did I
and
just
by
give
the way,
you 6 of these already?
the Rays lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I feel like the Cardinals
much
just
a
had a good series
done
with
deal.
the Rays. Could be wrong about that.
Cute fella, by the way, 5-4 over the Astros yesterday, and the Rays lost, so they continue their stranglehold of the American League East. Pirates over the Braves 7-5 yesterday. It was the Phillies over the Nationals 6-2. Also Cleveland, Detroit, and the Red Sox all winners. J&B's Kansas City Royals on the short end against the Red Sox, by the way. Cardinals 5-2 over Tampa, and it was Nashville. The sounds, that sound you hear is the sound of Nashville, unfortunately, sweeping the Indianapolis Indians yesterday. But Razor Shines was there, which was awesome.
Have the Orioles released their play-by-play announcer?
I was going to
for
say,
that,
is he back? Or
that
is he
2-week
still,
suspension for
is he still in prison?
the 2-week imprisonment for naming stats?
There had to be more to that, right?
I don't know.
There had to be.
For your sake, I hope so. That's your team.
Disgraceful. It does sound like that Orioles owner is not very highly thought of. Like him and Daniel Snyder in the same area. Probably thought of in the same lights. Good news for the Indiana Fever. If you're cheering for them to win, I guess some might be cheering for Caitlin Clark. By the way, did you see at the Iowa State Fair they have a butter sculpture of Caitlin Clark?
Really?
All butter. Mm-hmm.
Well, remember we had the butter sculptor at the Indiana State Fair on with us. The
Correct,
woman
yeah.
from Maryland, but
Not of Caitlin Clark, though. But maybe in a year or two.
I think it's interesting that people were talking about Caitlin Clark saying, look, she may come back for her COVID year because she'll make more in NIL at Iowa.
That's crazy.
Than she would in the W.
Fever win 91-73. Kelsey Mitchell, I think it was 24 for her. Aaliyah Boston had another impressive night, 15-13. They beat the Lynx. They've got the Liberty afternoon tip coming up on Sunday. And Jake, you will be over at IMS a whole lot this weekend. Saturday's the busiest day, and pretty much Friday today is going to be IndyCar, and Sunday will be the Cup race.
That is exactly correct. Today, IndyCar and Indy Next will be on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that concludes the day does between essentially 4:30 and 6 with the Indy Next race. Qualifying will take place at 2 in the afternoon. Actually, I take that back, 12:30 until 2 in the afternoon for IndyCar. So a full day today in the open wheel side of things. And then tomorrow, as Kevin had just mentioned, you've got the Gallagher Grand Prix. That's the IndyCar race. That takes place at 2 o'clock tomorrow. And then after that at 5:30, it is the Xfinity Series. That is NASCAR's smaller series. Those cars are awesome on the road course because literally they fit perfectly side by side going through the turns, and they get pretty aggressive. So fun to watch. Then Sunday it will be the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, essentially the Brickyard main event, if you will. That will be on Sunday. So full day or full weekend of racing out at IMS.
My hand is raised high in the air. My NASCAR knowledge is not much at all. From a local connection, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cendrick, Connor Daly we know is racing this weekend. Am I missing any others from a local standpoint?
Yes, and I got to sit here and think. Hold on. There's one, obviously Chase Briscoe, Mitchell, Indiana. Who's the one from gosh darn it, if you hadn't asked me. What's the town? Mark, help me out. You're driving to Chicago. It starts with a W. It's on the right-hand side. Winnemac. There's somebody from Winnemac.
Oh, Winnemac. Wait, stopped at a breakfast joint there before a golf tournament in LaPorte.
Winnemac, is that what you're talking about?
Isn't it near your cow, your dairy
Fair Oaks
plant?
Farms. Yeah, that's right
baby.
there.
Justin Haley from Winnemac.
Get
by
a
the way.
cookies and cream shake.
Justin
there.
Haley. Of
Not
Winnemac,
from
yeah.
Thorntown, though?
No, that's where Stookies is, which I called Stuckies, and then Todd Meyer almost fired me.
By the way, how about Jake's get up today, Mark? Credentials on?
I know.
Shirt's tucked in?
I would hope that you'd have his credentials after his.
Boy, you
brief
got a lot of
history.
credentials now that I see that.
See, I've got the IndyCar hard card here. I've got the Acura Motorsports Hospitality. I've got the, what is this here? Pit Pass, which is interesting because I'm not in the pits. And then the all-encompassing little Speedway one that has the
I had
icons.
one of those for the 500.
Yeah. I just wear it like this.
Jake Query's ready
I
to
gotta
go.
I gotta go straight over there, buddy.
I know.
The funniest thing, if he's missing one, and it'll be the one he needs.
Nothing like we're going to do this announcement. Jake's just going to run.
When it comes, most places, my face is my credential. But I know
not at the combine.
Listen, I know this.
Tell that to the Shield.
I know this will stun you guys. I am a broadcast professional.
Did you say I like me some me? Was that the audio from earlier, Mark?
No, love, not like love.
Okay, love. Let me make that very clear. All right, on the other side, we'll get back into the Colts conversation. Again, 9 o'clock coming up. We've got a big show announcement, and Matt Taylor is going to join us as he heads to Buffalo here in a bit. Kevin and Query on a gorgeous Friday in Indy.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
It is 25 minutes before the hour of 9 o'clock in Indianapolis. For that matter, it's 25 minutes before the hour of 9 o'clock everywhere in the Eastern time zone. My name is Jake Query, Kevin Bowen, the other voice you hear on this program. that is being manned by Mark Dykton, who sits in front of his now cracked open. Is that a case of PBR?
Yes, it's an 8. Well, you brought it in. What do you mean?
You haven't had a beer yet. I'm just saying.
I have not.
The case itself has been torn.
No, yes, it's an 18. Settle down. We got time left. It's an 18-pack, and 3 are in the fridge.
You might be cracking one open at 9 o'clock after you hear this announcement. I don't know
It's true.
To describe the type of emotion.
By the way, do you guys agree with, I'm curious your take on it. Bob Kravitz has written on his Substack column a review of our evening together with Bruce Springsteen. And as always, Bob, it's amazing the stuff that he observed. I had no idea that he's able to recount things like that, but he did a great job of recounting the evening with Michael and I. But I thought it was interesting when he said that road tripping with me is like being stuck on a 3-hour version of Jeopardy from Hell. Now, does that seem fair?
That seems more than accurate.
I think, honestly, it's probably putting it a little lightly.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the hell part.
I don't know. Listen, I'm telling you right now.
If I were Bob, I would have debated the megabus.
Okay, look, I'm just going to wager here. I'm going to wager here that there are people listening to this program that actually would be entertained by going to Chicago with me in the car. I don't
Drop
know
me
that.
off in Winamac.
I don't know.
I'll figure out the rest of the trip from
I'm
there.
also a road trip whiz. Like, we made it back. I got those guys back in like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that.
The guy who got a speeding
Was
ticket
getting out of the
coming home
city
from his graduation on 31.
Was getting out of the city the hardest part, the most time-consuming? I assumed it would be.
Listen, Kravitz will back me up on this. We were in getting back onto I-94. At one point, Michael Weir said, "That's the worst merger in the history of traffic." The lane was merging in front of me, and I'm letting this guy go. You know what I mean? Like he's merging in front of me, and he kept hitting his brakes. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you gotta. There were some hairy moments for certain.
I figured that was going to be the most time-consuming.
But between Wrigley and like 65, yes, that's obvious. But I mean, it was also 12:30 at night.
Yeah.
Speaking of Chicago, next Saturday night, you can join us downtown before the Colts take on the Bears. That is Saturday, the 19th of August, the Georgia Street Tailgate from 4 to 7. Music kicks off with a live DJ at the Jack Daniels Tailgate stage when gates open. Free entry, all ages are welcome. It is an awesome time, and again, not like we get many primetime games. So take the family down there, enjoy it, even if you're not going to the game. Perfect thing to do. Downtown, slide into a restaurant afterwards to watch the game. But that'll be next Saturday from 4 to 7.
Back 9 a week from today, too.
And the Back 9 golf outing a week from today. We will all be out there. Great entertainment spot. Do a little golf as well. But it'll be fun to mingle. And, again, we don't get a ton of opportunities. Granted, Grand Park has allowed a few. But always enjoy chatting with some listeners. And perfect start to the weekend there to throw a couple back on a Friday afternoon.
Listen. When it comes to the Back 9, open disclaimer. I mean, I'm not a golfer, right? And Kevin, you saw my golf. You saw me literally make like probably the 4th golf swing I've ever made in my life. So, would you agree that it's probably more suitable for me to just go from bay to bay, hanging out with people?
Yeah, I'd worry about maybe a trip to Eskenazi or something if you started swinging a few more.
You know what I mean? So I'll just go around.
But that's the beauty of it, is you don't have to go there and golf.
Totally.
Very much.
Oh, Jake fell in the netting.
Go and have a PBR.
Somebody fish him out.
That would be awesome. Non-Anthony Richardson division, Jake. What do you care about tomorrow?
You know, I'm curious to see who emerges as interesting to me, because the tight end that we know the most about in terms of we've seen the most body of work is Mo Alley-Cox. And there are a lot of things about him that are obviously of intrigue. And Jelani Woods has that same kind of stature about him. But I am curious to see who emerges out of that group as the clear-cut leader. Because Mo Alley-Cox is probably the incumbent, but I think that we know he's the closest to the ceiling. So who else is out there?
Yeah, I'd say the bummer with that, Jake, is yesterday at practice, 4 of the 5 that I would pencil in as the favorites / the guys competing for whether you keep 3, whether you keep 4 tight ends, they were out. And usually if you don't practice the practice before the preseason game, you're not playing in that preseason game. And I guess I should just list some of the guys that you probably will not see due to their respective injury situations. I'd put DeForest Buckner. I'd put Kenny Moore. I'd put Julian Blackmon. Probably Rodney Thomas II. So both those safeties. So on defense, I think you'll be, and maybe Shaquille Leonard. Defense, you'll have about 6 or 7 of your starters playing. Offense, you'll have about 7. Again, I mentioned those tight ends. Obviously, no Jonathan Taylor. Braden Smith, also a knee issue. Doesn't sound like he'll be out long, but it was the first time in 10 training camp practices that we did not see the same starting 5 on the O-line. So it'll be Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, and then I would guess Blake Freeland, the rookie out of BYU. That would be your starting O-line tomorrow. But yeah, I would throw tight end in there, Jake. Unfortunately, outside of Kylan Granson, I think you're going to be scrambling looking at your roster to see who are these guys, because I don't think we'll see, Woods and Allie Cox and Mallory and even Drew Ogletree, who tore his ACL last August.
One of the few sports subjects that we discussed during our drive to and from Chicago, Bob and I were discussing, and Michael chimed in, worst Colts players, and that sounds harsh, but guys that played the worst, let's say that, in the time that Bob and I both have covered the Colts.
Oh, jeez.
And
probably the guy that you mentioned in the first hour for the Johnny Manziel draft pick.
Trent Richardson. I think that's how it started, because Bob was talking about how he went out and did a big interview with Trent Richardson, and like a year ago, kind of a look back. There are some of the guys that were mentioned were interesting because they're guys that through camp you thought looked really good, and you had high hopes for, and then it just never panned out. And there are some guys, Kevin, that you watch and you think, like, wait a minute, is this really happening? Like, we're running out of time here for it to stick. You know what I mean? Or other guys you think, like, you just never know. I mean, that's to me what's fascinating. You just never know. And one of the positions I think that is the hardest to assess, I would think, would be defensive backfield and corner, for example. Because we've seen guys that have gone in, depending on what sort of scheme they're running, get signed in the halfway through the year, and they go in there and play pretty well for a couple of games, and then as time goes on they get exposed, and that's a position where you're probably going to see guys here in the preseason and you're going to think, wow, this guy can play, and then as time goes on you find out why they were a guy that you hadn't heard of until midway through the preseason.
Yeah, again, no Kenny Moore yesterday. He hasn't been out there for the last couple of days, so I don't think we'll see him tomorrow. Mark, I thought it was kind of wild that Mike Chappell was with us yesterday, Jake, that he mentioned that stat of the 10 cornerbacks on the Colts roster right now, 7 of them are undrafted.
That blew my mind.
The 3 drafted corners are the 3 rookies. The 3 guys that were drafted back in April. So you literally do not have a single cornerback on your roster that was a draft pick of any team in the NFL that's not a rookie.
Right.
Now, again, no Kenny Moore means you're going to see a lot of youth there. We had Darrell Baker Jr. on to lead off the show. He's number 39. You're going to see him out there. On my kind of things to watch list, I put down Juju Brents and Darius Rush. I mean, you talk about 2 rookies that obviously the staff is very high on. And in Rush's case, he wasn't out there for a ton in the spring, but when he was, he certainly flashed. Those 2 guys missed a portion of camp, a good chunk of camp, and now they're back. And I think it's critical for them to try and make a strong impression, because while you're 10 days into camp, you also are like 10 days into first semester. You're about to hit some midterms. You're about to eventually get to that final. And by that, I mean the truer evaluation points are these 3 preseason games and are these 3 joint practices. And the next 13 days, you're going to hit all those. You're going to hit the 3 preseason games, and you're going to hit those 3 joint practices.
By the way, I did not mention this earlier and should have when talking about the Colts draft picks, et cetera, et cetera. Yesterday, Jim Irsay tweeting that former first-round pick Sean Dawkins, who was a popular receiver out of the University of California, really nice-looking guy, gregarious. He was 6'4". He had a monster year in his last year at Cal, which allowed him to become a first-round pick of the Colts. I believe he was the 16th overall pick. And was a good player for the Colts during the kind of the merging, to be honest with you, for the time when this franchise became and had their greatest validity of belonging in Indianapolis. And by that I mean the Jim Harbaugh years, the run to, of course, the kind of miracle run to the AFC Championship, and the Ted Marchibroda, Lindy Infante years. Sean Dawkins was a key part of that. in playing for the Colts. I think probably a lot of people felt like because he was a first-round pick in the 93 draft, maybe that he never firmly got the footing that you would expect from a first-round pick. But he had a decent year here. 445 receptions, 6,291 yards, and 25 touchdowns in his career. And Sean Dawkins passing away at the age of 52.
Did we see any cause? I saw that as well, and I tried.
Cause of death has not been announced or determined. His mother passed away at just the age of 53 of cancer in 1999. But he was a good player, and he was, one of the things that I most remember about Sean Dawkins, aside from the fact that he was a flashy player. That's the thing I would say about him. He kind of gave the Colts offense, and in particular just the franchise in general. You were coming off obviously the Entman-Coriat drafts, and Dickerson had been a star here, but it didn't go well, obviously, and he had been just shipped out. So Dawkins gave them like a little bit of like a California pizzazz about it at a time when the franchise didn't have that. And I'll never forget, I was working as an intern at Channel 6, and the Colts had won a game. I think it was in Miami. I can't remember where they were. But they called me up and said, hey, we need you to go down to the airport. This shows you how old and antiquated this was. We need you to go down to the airport and interview players as they're coming off the plane because they hadn't sent anybody to the game because they didn't think the Colts would win. And Sean Dawkins came off the plane, and I'm interviewing him, and he sees the Channel 6 mic flag. And at that time, Grace Trahan was one of the anchors at WRTV, who is now married to Joe Rodicap, who was the video editor and just a fabulous dude. Both of them are just wonderful people. But Sean Dawkins sees the microphone, and he's talking to me, and he sees the microphone and looks right at the camera and goes, Grace Trahan, how you doing? Sean Dawkins here. I watch you all the time. I'm like, oh, okay. So
that's like Zach Wilson with the moms in the stands,
that's
right?
exactly right.
Uh-huh.
But nonetheless, Sean Dawkins passing away at the age of 52, a good player for the Colts.
And again, Jake, those are kind of my early years of any sports recollection, but I do feel like Sean Dawkins kind of falls into one of the very few players in this category of like taller Colts wideout that worked out. I do feel like the Colts have kind of struggled to find like the big body wideout that has had a nice career.
Yeah.
A little bit trial and error here. Even before, mainly in the Ryan Grigson era, and then, even in the Chris Ballard era. And injuries have kind of played into that, but that is something that I do recall about him. All right, we've got a big show announcement coming up in about 10 minutes. Do I need to prepare for this announcement at all?
That's why there's beer in the fridge.
Of course, me asking Jake to prepare is probably... that doesn't really check, does it? You said beer in the fridge, Mark?
The PBRs will be celebratory.
Did I see cake in the kitchen?
Really?
Possession into the end zone for a
Cake and beer. I'm there.
Play that one more time for the cake and beer.
possession into the end zone for a
Big show announcement in 10. Kevin Aquaria on a beautiful Friday.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Mark, this is not the big show announcement that we have coming up at the top of the hour, but Buc-ee's is coming to the area, right?
I know. Yeah, we only got tagged in that story about a dozen times yesterday.
No wonder you've got beer and cake.
I know. Yeah, coming to Dayton, Ohio, I guess. Sure, bring it on. Getting closer.
Getting closer, right?
Closer. Then there's going to be that turf war between Wally's and Buc-ee's at some point.
I did see somebody say that they went to Buc-ee's and they thought it was nothing more than a souped-up Flying J. Would you agree with that?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say Mark would take heavy offense to that, wouldn't he?
Flying J? No. That's blasphemy. Would you?
What's that?
Would you agree with that assessment?
No. I think I would say not.
What about like a Love's? Isn't Love's kind of the go-to?
That Love's is Love's Flying J? Or are they separate?
Are they the same?
I don't know.
Similar colors.
I just know Love's Heating and Air. 317-353-2141. Love-HVAC.com.
So we got a big show announcement on the other side. Matt Taylor's going to join us probably a little bit more around 9:10. And I guess we've got beer and cake to celebrate the announcement,
The
right?
cake is a bonus. The cake's been sitting out, I'm assuming, overnight. So that's kind of risk reward right there.
Do we have a line on the preseason game
Elaine
tomorrow?
Bennis out there
Yeah.
eating a piece. Right?
I can check real quick. I'm not sure. I'm not that much of a degenerate. I haven't checked.
You guys want to take a
preseason
guess on the
lines yet.
line for the Colts Bills tomorrow? I have it right here.
I'll say Bills 3.5.
1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Is that what Phil Mickelson needs to call, by the way? You see those headlines yesterday?
It is
Oh,
Phil.
oh boy. Yeah, he used his love money.
Okay, the line, the game's in Buffalo, right?
Game is in Buffalo, yeah. Did you ask that because it's a hostile preseason environment?
Bills by 7.
Colts are favored by 3.5.
Whoa!
What?
You guys taking that?
How about that?
I see their. Well, this is on another. It's 4.5.
Look at that. Now, no Josh Allen, correct?
I would assume not.
Hey, Jake, Buc-ee's is an Old Navy with snacks. Okay.
Old Navy with snacks sounds awesome. Although Old Navy has got a great little snack. I don't know, what would you call it? A snack display as you check out.
Well, they do the same thing at like TJ Maxx when you go through and you're like, oh wow, look at that! I've never seen that style of Reese's. Oh, it's because it came out in 2019.
Is there a brand that has more different sub-brands than Reese's?
No, I you know what? Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you. I meant to mention this the other day on the show before we get to our big announcement at 9. Reese's, it slowly but surely, it's taking over the entire rack. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that?
Oh, it's its own rack.
It literally,
Yeah,
like, you get to
100%.
the counter and you're like, oh my gosh. Like the Hershey folk have got to be, although they might be the same thing.
I'm like, I just want the big Reese's and move on. And now my eyes are so confused. I'm like, did I already overlook it?
Well, now there's a crunchy one where it's like crunchy peanut butter in the middle. That's the new one.
Is that good?
It was all right.
What about the Pringles one? I mean, really?
Big show announcement on the other side. Kevin and Query here, 9 o'clock hour.
To Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Boy, my heart's racing a little bit, Jay Query. Friday at 9's the wind down, and now all of a sudden I'm like, geez, I need to call Mopman. My blood pressure.
I've got meds
rising.
that prohibit mine from doing that.
We've been teasing it all morning long. It is a big show announcement, and I think certainly it's the elephant in the room. We've obviously, as a station, we have been searching for someone in a permanent basis, or I guess multiple people on a permanent basis from a noon to 3 standpoint. The company has searched the entire country for the absolute best person to lead that, and maybe we'll cue up a little audio to make this announcement here from the new noon to 3 host.
I just lost the audio.
Nice job, Mark.
I did. I had it, and it's gone.
Typical show fashion. We have a lost audio here. So we'll
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
So, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know the time frame. The time frame is irrelevant. But it might have been actually, probably not coincidentally, that time I overslept. Do you remember that time I overslept?
Oh,
Mark?
yeah, that one time.
Do we remember?
And
some are saying that's a reason.
there have been a lot of very talented people and a lot of really good people and a lot of, great, entertaining people that have been filling in on the noon show, all of which certainly merit being in that position. But about, a couple of weeks ago, our boss came to me and said, listen, instead of honing in on any one of those people, would you be interested in being a host that would then be able to utilize the versatility of a number of different recurring guests on the noon show? So would you be interested in being the noon host of a program that would involve the variety and the versatility of those that we are fortunate enough to regularly have come through the doors here in the studio, and move from the morning show to noon to 3? And my first thought was, okay, so you mean I don't wake up in the dark anymore? Because in the wintertime, getting up early, I am a night owl.
You won't be oversleeping noon to 3.
Correct.
That's
Well, let's not, there's a wager there. Guys, when I came on to this show, admittedly, Kevin, I knew you were the incumbent, so to speak, right? And Mark, you and I had worked only like in the week or two that I had come in as kind of a trial basis. And so I came in, and I have been very appreciative of and proud of, quite frankly, the fact that I think we've gelled together to have a lot of fun over the last nearly 2 years in the morning. Hopefully those that listen to this program have had that same amount of fun. And I've loved every minute of it. I have not necessarily loved getting up at that hour. So effective, a week from Monday. So we will do this show again next week.
Yep, August 21st.
And then beginning on the 21st, I will be, I guess, anchoring, for lack of a better phrase. I will be the host of a new program that will be taking place on this show, or on this station, I should say, every day from 12 until 3. My understanding is, as of now, the idea is that it's going to be basically Query and Company. So there are going to be a number of people. I think ultimately it will be a 2-person show, but for now, we'll just be utilizing the talents and the contributions of a number of different people. I look forward to those people and working with them from noon to 3. And for you guys, look, I've loved every minute of working with you guys and having fun with it. But when that was brought to me, I was invigorated by that, but I said, listen, I really do care about what happens in the morning and the listeners that we have. I'm hopeful that obviously many of them continue to listen throughout the course of the day. I know all of them listen to J&B, and who wouldn't, and in the midday show, they have been listening to those that have been filling in. So then I said, well, now what happens to Kevin and Mark? Because you guys are fully capable, obviously, of surviving without me. We know that. But, Kevin, this all also was facilitated by the fact that somebody will be joining you guys in the morning.
Yeah, and let me start off by saying this, Jake, before we get into the future of what 7 to 10 is going to look like. I think it's fair to say, and I have a bit mixed emotions, if I'm going to be truly honest with you about this. Obviously, I'm pretty excited about the potential of our station as a whole in moving an extremely established and talented brand, voice, however you want to describe yourself, as I feed your ego, into that noon to 3 slot. But kind of building off what you said, I've been pretty proud of what we have built over the last 2 years, and I've really enjoyed working with you. I obviously did not, as you laid out there, I did not know you super well by any means before we started, but I think you've helped me grow, and I think it's been a pretty good listen. And again, I don't know, maybe that's your ego rubbing off on my ego, so thank you for that. But you are really, really talented, and you've got a hell of a brain, you got a hell of a heart, and I've really enjoyed the last 2 years. So, again, excited about the potential of our station moving forward without question, but at the same time, I'd be lying to you if I didn't have a little bit of like, damn, I now have to talk about the show like in the past tense. We had something. I guess we got one more week, so maybe I can't go fully there, but I will certainly miss all three of us working together here from 7 to 10.
And Mark, the best thing about this is, I guess, because of our wager between the Diamondbacks and the Orioles, you probably don't have to pay me off the PBR, right?
Oh, no, that still stands.
I'm out. Yeah, neither do I. I just, maybe I'll have to pay Mark.
I can hand you, I can hand you 6 right now.
Let me tell you guys something interesting before we get to what's going to happen, because you guys are going to have a heck of a lot of fun in the mornings, and I look forward to being able to listen to it, notably, after I wake up. You're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to have, I think, a lot of variety of fun that people are going to enjoy listening to as I'm getting ready for a show from 12 until 3. But I thought about this yesterday, and I mean this sincerely. I think one of the things for me that is very surreal, and this certainly isn't about me, it's about this show, but it incorporates, I think, a little bit on probably for you guys where you're going here. I was in my late 20s, J&V and I have talked about this. J&V, when I was 28 years old, I was working at a cigar store, and I was going in at night and cutting tape for Ed Sorensen and, taking his kids to Meyer and whatever I needed to do. J&V was busting tires and baling hay, but we both had this same dream and this vision of being able to talk to people in Indianapolis about sports. I mean, that's really what I wanted to do, to not only that, but talk to people in Indianapolis and be a voice for people that didn't have one of their own. Those were important things to me. And each step of my career, I have wondered to myself how I'm in that position, and I have been fueled and driven by the reality of the certainty that at some point people are going to figure out that I'm just kind of an imposter of a guy that wanted to do what I do, but probably isn't really very good at doing it. And that insecurity or that drive that I had when I was 28 and terrified of rejection and failure is what still drives me at nearly 51 years old, and will continue to drive me in the noon show, and hopefully to the best show that we can possibly do. And so I think there's always, when there's change in radio, it always leads to an uncertainty or an uneasiness within you, but then you reawaken that drive and that motivation, and that's what allows you to do the best product possible. And there's no question in my mind that you two guys who have carried me for 19, 20 months, whatever it's been, will do absolutely that for the newest member of our station who I don't envy that he has to now get up early, although I did get used to it, and I have really enjoyed doing this day part. I don't envy the hours that he's now going to have to keep, but I do envy that he's going to be able to work with both of you, because you guys will put together one whale of a product, no question about it.
Well, whether he wants to admit it or not, he's about to wake up early regardless of showtime because he's welcoming in his first child here in a couple of months. Andy Sweeney is going to be joining us here on the morning show. I believe, I guess I should double check this, but I believe the new title is going to be the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy. Andy Sweeney comes to us from ESPN Louisville. He is the program director and host of The Take with Andy Sweeney down there in Louisville. Chatted with him before, listened to his show. Very, very talented. Seems like a great dude. And I've heard great things from people that have worked either in that market or with him. They're actually a Colts affiliate, which I did not know. They actually carry Colts games. But Andy lives technically right now in Indiana. He actually grew up in Jeffersonville, went to Jeffersonville High School, stayed in state, and he's been commuting from Sellersburg, which just north of Louisville, here. And he's already bought a place here and will, of course, be moving. And like I said, he's going to welcome his first kid here in a couple of months. So, again, I've heard great things about Andy. Strikes me as someone that is really, really talented. And obviously, from a program director standpoint, he's had a lot on his plate in Louisville. So I'm sure he's looking forward to just concentrating on being a host. And it will be him and myself and Mark producing. And that will be the new 7 to 10 look.
Now, the name of the show again will be?
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
See, I think mine should be called the snooze button. What do you think? Pretty much.
Yours should be called Credentials Required.
Yeah, literally.
What? No, my face is my credential, Mark.
Again, I
See,
cannot.
this is the stuff you'll miss, isn't it?
I cannot comment.
We'll miss the show drops I have.
If the rumors of this being
When
done,
I was
because
19, I would have dressed like a total jackass, I'll bet you.
you just slide those to noon to 3, Mark.
Oh yeah,
You know, you can
I'll
just
save
keep
them
those
for.
in there.
I'll save them for the.
Jake, you did mention a variety of co-hosts. That is going to include Jimmy Cook. I do think
Yes.
that's something. I know Jimmy has been outstanding in that chair here for the past few months. So Jimmy will be a part of, sounds like a variety of people that will be joining Query and Company here over the next few weeks and few months.
We look forward to it, and I think, listen, our bosses in our station kind of have a track record of obviously putting together, and I'd like to think that the three of us is an example of this, but having a vision of putting together good shows, and I think that's going to continue. And like I said, at my age with the meds I'm on, it takes a little extra to get the heart going and the juices flowing, but this will do it. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, and just final thing from me, and again, we'll have Andy on a little bit next week. He's going to join, I think, all of our shows over the course of next week. You can also meet him coming up next Friday at the Back Nine Golf Outing right here just south of downtown. So looking forward to those interactions with him. This will officially start Monday the 21st. I'm excited. I think when you talk about the future of our station and spreading things out over the course of all three of our local shows, it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, there is a feeling of a bit bummed right now because I do think we have built something that I've really enjoyed, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it as well. And I will miss hanging out, all three of us, and hopefully we can keep the group text going.
Just make sure if you want to, the group text, and if you want to chat with me, that it's after 10. Right?
Yeah,
if you've got problems with your nip. Now, Mark. Now, come on.
Nips,
now, here's the thing. You
Mark,
had
you
to,
think in the
you
month
had
of
to go
May?
there, didn't you? Yeah. Thanks so much. You had to go.
Let's have Jake on the month of May. Yeah, can you guys record at 10:30 with me for tomorrow?
That's exactly right.
Exactly what's going to happen. All right, back to a little Colts conversation. There are some details on our website. I should probably retweet the link. You can check that out for a little bit more if you missed our show announcement of Jake sliding to noon to 3 here, beginning a week from Monday. Nothing like bringing on a former, employee, someone that's been in this building for quite some time. He's the voice of the Colts. First preseason game is coming up Saturday. Matt Taylor, apologize for the rather lengthy delay in getting to you there.
What's happening on West 56th? Presented by Shelby Materials, the concrete and aggregate experts. We'll find out in 30 seconds.
Do you want to work for a company who has your back? You can count on Shelby Materials. Shelby Materials has 10 ready-mix locations in central Indiana and is looking for Class B CDL drivers. Highlights include being home every night and every other weekend off during peak season. Shelby Materials stands behind its work, products, and people. We support our employees with competitive wages and benefits, including 401k, PTO, paid holidays, HSA, and a sign-on bonus. Learn more about your next opportunity by visiting shelbymaterials.com.
Now,
what's happening on West 56? Brought to you by Shelby Materials, the concrete and aggregate experts.
Now introducing Matt at the wrong time and then playing that other spot at the wrong time.
Is Matt Taylor snoring?
I'd like to let people
right
know that's the reason I'm going to the noon slot, right?
Oh, Matt, I'm sorry, man. That was the lengthiest intro in the history of radio intros.
You guys had a meeting about that at 6:30. Clearly, I was unaware.
This better be good. All I'm saying, this better be damn good after that.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, you're going to have to carry the weight. Matt Taylor, good Friday morning to you. You looking forward to the trip to Buffalo?
I am. But, hey, I don't know. I mean, condolences, but also congratulations to you guys. I mean, I know you guys have, like you guys have said, I mean, I agree with you. You guys have put out a fun and entertaining show, and I've certainly enjoyed listening to it. But congratulations on the next move, and here's the future.
I appreciate that. Cheers to Matt Taylor's morning coffee, as Mark Dykton has a morning PBR right now. As we open up the preseason starting tomorrow, Mate, it's going to be you, Joe Wrights, and Jeffrey Gorman here the next couple of weeks. Is that right?
That's it. That's the crew for the first two games. The last game is an Amazon Prime game, so no local radio for that game in Philadelphia. So we'll have the regular season radio crew in full swing for that game with Rick Venturi and Lara Overton. But, yeah, the first two games, Joe Wrights and the Gorman patrolling the sidelines.
Matt, do you read anything into – it's hard to get excited about – excited's the wrong word maybe, but preseason game number one, like who's the starting quarterback going to be? Clearly, eventually, the keys are going to be handed over to Anthony Richardson, but do we read anything into that, or is that just it's kind of his turn to start out the rotation through the preseason of who's going to take snaps?
No, I think this kind of coincides with, I mean, you go back to the draft, you go back to Chris Ballard on the first day of training camp. I mean, they all said that, you know, the biggest way anyways, that Anthony Richardson is going to improve and get better and, you know, have a good gauge on whether or not he can handle this going into the regular season is live bullets. And I think with 3 preseason games and 3 joint practices, I mean, that's 6 opportunities if they take advantage of them between now and August 24th. So this is a huge opportunity for Anthony Richardson. And I think there's something to be said. I mean, this is kind of maybe like the former player in me coming out, and it's going to sound really basic, but I think it's true. I mean, there's something to be said, even though it's a preseason game and he's probably only going to play a quarter, if that, tops coming up tomorrow. But just the fact that he's going to be the starter, and he's going to be the guy that takes the first team reps. He's going to be the first quarterback in the first quarter of the first preseason game, and only having, like 13 games under his belt, only 400 passes for his college career, a lot of inexperience. I think there's something to be said for just like, hey, you know what, for today, for whatever it's worth, I know it's an exhibition game, but for right now, you're the guy. And he's going to have to kind of deal with the excitement of that and compartmentalize with the adrenaline and the anticipation and maybe some of the anxiety and some of the nerves. So I think that's healthy, because if he does go into the regular season as the starter, he's going to definitely feel those same emotions, certainly on a bigger level. But get him used to that, I think, is a good drill, if you will, going into the regular season if it comes to if it comes to fruition that Anthony Richardson is your guy in September.
Matt Taylor, I've thrown this at all of our guests this week, so I apologize for being lazy, but you bring a fresh perspective, so I'll throw it at you. There's 12 quarters in the preseason. Over under 4.5 quarters for Anthony Richardson.
I'd probably take the under on that. Just because I don't know what that last preseason game is going to look like. You know, typically, is that dress rehearsal or do the joint practices kind of throw something into that? Yeah, that's what I don't know. I mean, you know, you're going to have 2 joint practices, 2 joint experiences with 2 different teams, 3 total. You know, I think he's definitely going to play next Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium against the Bears, but I don't know what it's going to look like, you know, a couple days after that, the following Thursday in Philly. You know, there's some really good work he's going to get in, and if the Colts kind of feel it out and say, we like where Anthony Richardson's at right now from an experience standpoint, being able to handle and being able to, dissect a live defense. And there's going to be things that obviously he's going to see in those joint practices that he would not see against the Colts defense in training camp or against the team in the preseason. So if they feel like he's comfortable, diagnosing things at the line of scrimmage and going through his reads and completing a high percentage of his passes, maybe they say, just let's focus now on the regular season. Let's not get him hurt. Let's not take any chances. in that last game against Philly. But I think as of right now, considering just, again, his thin resume coming out of college, I think all reps are good reps no matter how they come. But typically, if he was a 3 or 4 year veteran like a Josh Allen, tomorrow for the Bills, then I would say no way he plays in that last preseason game following joint practices. But with Anthony Richardson, he just needs to play, and see where he's at.
Matt, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Greg Rakestraw earlier. Matt Taylor, the voice of the Colts, is our guest. He's on the Payless Siggers hotline. So much attention will be paid, understandably, rightly so, towards the quarterback position for the Colts in the preseason. But give me the position battle or the player that you are most intrigued by that doesn't play quarterback.
Well, obviously tomorrow it's, who's going to play running back just because they're so banged up there. Jonathan Taylor still on PUP. Zach Moss has a broken arm. The earliest he can come back is the beginning of the regular season, and that's, very generous, I think, given that it's a 6-7 week, progress following that broken arm. Deion Jackson is dealing with a leg injury. So right now you've got Jake Funk, Evan Hull, Kenyon Drake, Huntley, who they signed earlier this week, comes over from Philly, in the preseason last year. Evan Hull, I think if you're going to start a game tomorrow, is going to be your starter just based on those injuries. But, you want to play him tomorrow because you want to see what he can do. He's a 5th-round pick. It's going to be his first opportunity of any kind to get on an NFL game field. You want to see what he can handle. You want to see how he can negotiate live bullets, if you will, even though it's a preseason game. But at the same time, again, if you're playing tomorrow, you might want to put him in some bubble wrap because you need him. He's going to be a starter, or at least a guy that's going to have a huge role within this offense at running back. So that's where my eyeballs are going to be just in terms of his usage, especially in that first quarter. And then same kind of thing at tight end because they're so banged up with Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods. Drew Ogletree's now banged up. Will Mallory's now dealing with a hamstring. How do they divvy up this playing time in the second half between Kylan Granson and Farrell Brown and some of the guys they signed late last week with Nick Eubanks and Michael Jacobson? These guys are going to have to play, and they're going to be evaluated in terms of their candidacy to make the regular season roster. So that's where I'm going on offense. And then defense, secondary. It's the same thing. Injuries are playing a part there with, you've got Julian Blackman is banged up. Nick Cross is going to be – he's going to be a guy that's going to play a ton tomorrow. Same thing with Rodney Thomas II. He's got a toe injury now. Is that going to be, Trevor Denbo? Is that going to be Marcel Dabo, who, was an international pathway program player last year? So there is a huge amount of opportunity and chance to shine tomorrow as some of these guys towards the back end of the roster look to make a claim for the regular season. But, injuries and playing time is going to complicate things a little bit tomorrow for the Colts.
Again, Matt Taylor is with us, the voice of the Colts. For the next 2 Saturdays, you will hear him with Joe Reitz and Jeffrey Gorman. And then, as Matt said, it'll be back to Rick Venturi and Lara Overton coming up for the final preseason game, which is a Thursday nighter in Philly. Matt, I think you kind of hinted at this at the beginning, but I'll ask it again just for clarification. Last night we saw C.J. Stroud, 2 series of work with the Texans, 11 plays. I would like to think Anthony Richardson is in the lineup for a little bit longer than that. Do you think he will be in the lineup for longer than 2 series and 11 plays? / do you think they would keep him in whenever they turn to more of a second unit offensive line, or do you think he exits when the Quentin Nelsons and Ryan Kellys of the world exit?
Yeah, it's a good thought. I mean, if I'm in charge, which I'm not, but if I were doing it selfishly, I'd like to see him play a full quarter. Whatever that amounts to, if that's 2 series, if that's 3 series. And then ideally, you'd like to see a couple of scoring drives, And the Colts have been very, very diligent and intentional on their situational drills so far in camp. Kevin, I mean, every day there's a 3rd down period, a red zone period, you're stacked up in your own end zone period, 4-minute, 2-minute. So I want to see how some of those situational periods translate to a game, really, for Anthony Richardson. But I'd like to see him play a full quarter, whatever that amounts to. I don't think I would put him out there with the second group just because, he has played, almost, 5 days with the entire offensive line, minus yesterday with Braden Smith leaving his position at right tackle. I would think again, you kind of drill this and simulate this for the regular season, So if he's going to be out there as the starter, which I think has a lot of merit to it going into the regular year, have him go through the emotions of taking the first team snaps or taking that first snap of the game, but also throwing to Michael Pittman Jr. and Kylan Granson and Josh Downs and Isaiah McKenzie and Alec Pierce and playing behind that offensive line. So, again, I just kind of contradicted myself with reps, but you got to be smart about it too, and you also have to be, very cognizant of who's around him, how that can impact him, and kind of keeping that big picture in mind, like this is all to get us to September 11th, week 1 against the Jaguars, healthy and as mentally sharp as possible. So, no, I don't think I would put him out there with the twos just for continuity's sake, just so I'm not clouding up his mind and mudding up, those images that he sees on a weekly basis or daily basis going into the regular season.
Hey, Matt, last question for me. It is the preseason, so I am curious, and I think fans do get interested in this kind of a thing from behind the scenes. In terms of the travel for a preseason game, I assume that it is treated as if it's a regular season game and probably just the routine stays the same because everything you're trying to replicate. So can you give fans kind of a perspective of what the travel looks like in terms of the in and out of Buffalo and what all goes into, from the franchise standpoint, preparing for the game?
Yeah, it's very much like a regular season game. I think all trips are kind of treated with a business trip mentality to them. So we're going to leave. I think we got to be on the plane by like 1:30 this afternoon, and we get to Buffalo or get to the team hotel just after 4. And then it's basically status quo, just basically like what they would do at training camp if they were at Grand Park. They would go through position meetings, and then they would have special teams meetings. They would have a team meal later on tonight. Lights out. It's going to be a reasonable time, probably around 10:30, because it is an early game tomorrow with a 1 o'clock kick. So guys are going to have to report to the stadium, kind of trickle into Highmark Stadium around 10:30 and get their bodies right and get their minds right. So yeah, it's a normal trip, just a bigger traveling party, if you will. And instead of having 55 guys or whatever the number is, including practice squad guys that travel during the regular season, now you have close to 100 guys player-wise, and then you've got staff and you've got doctors and trainers and coaches. So it is going to be a big, full flight, if you will, to Buffalo. But yeah, it's very much treated just like it would in the regular season. I think all guys understand that. They respect that. And I think that should give you a lot of hunger. Like, again, if you're a guy towards the back end of the roster, trying to make this team, like if you're a receiver like Amari Rodgers or a Cody Case or a Juwan Winfrey, some of these guys are rookies or they tasted the NFL. Being on, even though it's a preseason game, being on a NFL trip should just give you a lot of hunger and thirst to, like, I want to stick around and make more of these. So I think the Colts definitely do a good job of making it feel like it's an important game, because it is, because it's all part of the puzzle going into the regular season as they try to fill out these roster cuts.
Again, Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts. Our coverage begins tomorrow at 10 a.m. And one thing I'll just add, Mate, because I think it's seemingly changed a lot over the recent years, there's just one roster cut now. In some of these years past, we've gone from like 90 to 85 to 80, then to 53, or 90 to 75, then to 53. These guys that are on the 90-man roster, as long as they don't get cut, they can play all 3 preseason games, and then one big final cut after the final preseason game. So that would be Tuesday, August 29th. So for those curious, when do roster cuts start to happen? Just one big one coming up later this month. Mate, safe travels, man, and enjoy the call, and we look forward to these Friday conversations throughout football season.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. I'm looking forward to them, too. And, again, congratulations on the move, on the news, and we'll always be listening.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mate.
You got it. See you guys.
That is Matt Taylor right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Yes, we're breaking up.
Really?
Cordial breakup?
Possession into the end zone for a
No, in all seriousness, we announced it at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. For those that missed it, Jake.
Was that your reaction, Mark, when you heard the news?
Yeah.
Jake sliding
like
to the noon to 3 slot.
And by the way, I should have pointed this out. The first week of the noon to 3 slot, and I'm thrilled about it, Jimmy Cook will be joining me on the mic. So I'm thrilled for that because nobody's worked harder in this building. No offense, Mark.
Oh, thanks.
And been more capable, certainly, of being on that mic. So he'll join me starting a week from Monday for the first week of it.
Again, Query and Company for the next couple of weeks, months, etc. But Jake going to be noon to 3. It will be myself and Mark still in our roles that we are currently in. But Andy Sweeney from Louisville, ESPN Louisville down there, he's going to join us. I've gotten the chance to listen to Andy a couple times here in recent weeks. He is a very, very talented guy, so looking forward to having him with us. But at the same time, as I said, to lead off this hour, I am a bit bummed that us three will not be doing this for 15 hours a week, even though some of us throw in the towel towards the end of the week.
Mark, when I first started doing this show with you guys, really only one thing has changed in the time, like I said, just under 2 years. You used to bring in large bowls of cereal every morning.
That's kind of changed.
Have you deviated from that? What happened?
I just don't have the time. It's too much work.
I have
bringing in a bowl and cereal and then like a cup of milk. Come on now.
Come by the house sometime around 11.
Yeah,
right around when I'm getting up and
take it from Boo. Do you feed Boo the milk?
That's right.
Something else that's changed is maybe the color of my hair and maybe a few more that have fallen out and having to deal with you for the last couple of years. All right, we'll continue with the pop quiz.
Very low maintenance.
4-pack of tickets to the State Fair. Mark, you said we're doing some big giveaways next week?
Next week, yeah. We've got Jim Irsay collection tickets next week, as well as Jethro Tull tickets next week.
By the way, it's still going to be us for one more week, so I guess we all have
Jethro Tull. I get that confused with Molly Hatchet.
Live together for one more week.
Which one's the flute fella? Is that Jethro Tull that uses the flute all the time? Zamfir, was he in
Kenny
Jethro
G,
Tull?
I think, actually.
Good thing Scotty's in here to give you confirmation. It's a freebie Friday in the pop quiz, so Jiffy Lube Oil Change along with the 4-pack of tickets to the State Fair. Before we do all of that, morning checkdown.
He is a moron.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Can I just go ahead and predict that next week is going to be the most fabulous week of shows we've ever done?
I feel like we need to just fire on all cylinders.
We'll never be more honed in, right?
I mean, literally, Jake will treat it like the final's been given 2 weeks before school's ending, and he will just...
Every show drop, every rejoiner. I feel like there should be no rules next week.
Yeah, you got to... I mean, Mark, you just got to empty it all,
Should we
right?
open... I don't know if I can open up the band audio, but I think next week might be an opportunity to do
rules.
it. That's what I would say.
No rules. There will be some rules. You want to touch it?
There you go. There's one.
Okay.
Now, you remember, you and I are staying together.
Well, I know.
Come on now.
Yeah, I've still got a plethora of drops for you.
That's plethora.
Whatever.
I am an absolute metrosexual when it comes to shower gels, skin lotions, hair product. It's an issue. Yeah, well, wait till people find out one of the fabulous places in town that helps facilitate that metrosexual nature for me, which you'll be hearing about once I get to the
August 21st, the first hour will be an introduction to all of the colognes. Jimmy
right.
Cook,
That'll be the first week. That'll be the first week. What are you talking about?
That Dolce & Gabbana, Bond number 9?
It's in the air.
Speaking of colognes, we'll get the smell of a football game. I'll be at a preseason game tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Mark, you cue up that Richardson audio from earlier. It will be Anthony Richardson in the starting lineup for the Colts. Sounds like around a quarter of action for the starters. But Shane Steichen said yesterday, kind of a case-by-case situation with those guys. What are the goals for Anthony Richardson here in his first ever NFL action?
Just consistency. I know I can run, I know I can pass, so whatever coach calls, I'm going to try to make sure I do my job the right way and just be consistent with it all.
That's just like us, right?
Not for long.
Dear Lord.
Consistency's going out the window.
I can already see where this next week's going to be.
By the way, speaking of the Colts, sad news yesterday announced by Jim Irsay, former first-round pick, 1993 first-round pick Sean Dawkins, talented wide receiver, a 6'4 receiver who had a dynamic career at the University of California, and was a solid player for the Colts in their kind of breakthrough years, notably under Jim Harbaugh when they went to the AFC Championship, passing away yesterday at the age of 52. a cause of death for Dawkins was not announced.
One last thing on the Colts preseason game front. We mentioned earlier that the Colts are favored by 3.5. I think that took a lot of us by surprise. Terry has broken this down for us, Jake. I can see the Colts being a 3.5-point favorite. After Richardson leaves the game, you have Gardner Minshew playing against the second and third string guys, and then the preseason legend Sam Ehlinger playing against guys that won't even be in the league.
Fair point. 1-800-9-WITH-IT, by the way, for those lines.
Terry's 529 sounds like for his children going to be on the game coming up on Saturday.
Not unlike was it number of? Are you doing that again for the Pacers? Number of wins? See, I'll miss these degenerate things from you.
Yeah, we're going to randomly, I think, have you on. Certainly. Again, as long as you wake up, which you did yesterday.
Can we record that ahead of time?
Well, you just read some baseball scores so we can move on here.
Sure. Yesterday, Major League Baseball. All you need to know: cute fella, the Orioles won. The Blue Jays lost. The Rays, lost. So the cute fella has a huge advantage in the AL East, a stranglehold, if you will. Indianapolis Indians were swept by the Nashville Sounds yesterday, but Razor Shines was in the building, and that's what matters.
The Book of Mormon.
I'm just firing off all the sounders we got right now.
I thought you'd play some Vitamin C, the graduation song. I know we did that for Jake back in...
back when he graduated the first time?
Maybe say that for next Friday, Mark.
Yeah.
That'd be in...
the Friars are here. Oh, no, the pack of dogs is back. Look out. Get off my leg.
Hey, we're not heard from the Bobcat. What are we doing? Where's the Bobcat? The dog got to him.
This is where our boss begins to regret this decision, correct?
No, this is where he's thinking 8 days left.
The Fever won last night, 91-73 over the Minnesota Lynx. Leah Boston 15-13. Kelsey Mitchell 24. It was a rare.
How big are the pack of dogs that the elephant was hiding behind them?
Oh, that's pretty nice. Oh, no, the dogs are back. Get out of here. Down. Okay. Give you a begging strip.
Okay.
Because Andy Sweeney knows what he's signing up for here.
Andy just did a U-turn in Seymour. Okay, pop quiz next. We are giving away. What are we giving away again?
I don't know. What the hell are we doing
I'll let
anymore?
you try to get this back on the track.
Last 4-pack of State Fair tickets.
Okay.
Freebie Friday, too.
Freebie Friday.
Online at 1075thefan.com. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Now, who gets the pop quiz? Are we trading the pop quiz? Do you get to take it with you? Do we keep it?
It's like a divorced parent. Like, you got him for the weekend. There you go.
Is this a 50-50 split? One week it's us, the next week it's you?
Jake has to drive it over on Mondays.
I can't this week. I've got the pop quiz.
Can you imagine how many times they would get to the pop quiz segment, Mark? Be like, wait, I need a second to find it.
Oh, I haven't opened it yet. Oh, my email's down.
My email is down a lot. Mm-hmm. You notice that?
So is Eddie Garrison going to be producing with you?
God, I need to have a beer with him.
I was going to say, we might need a technological...
You go over some things.
You got 18 of them over there, so...
I know. Probably need more.
Share and share alike, right?
It's time for the pop quiz. It's a freebie Friday, so along with the 4-pack of tickets, this is the final
if you don't
one.
mind me saying so, Mark's over there sitting on a free thing of PBR. Kevin, you got on a fabulous PBR hat. Neither of these two things would you have if not for moi. And what do I get instead of a grateful thank you, Uncle Jake, for the introduction to the great things? No, what I'm getting is this is going to be fun. Let's just make divorce jokes. Okay, fine, sure.
No, but I'd have more hair and it wouldn't be as gray as it currently is now, and I'll just swallow my pride with any other comments.
Okay.
Freebie Friday, our final time giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the State Fair. And again, the Jiffy Lube oil change for whoever gets on air. Jake, number 1 through 8.
We got 6 shows left, so we'll go 6.
Darnell,
what's up?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great, Darnell. How are you?
Darnell, it's been 3 years for me to say this, but I promise you this is the truth, Darnell. I kid you not, yesterday... your gift cards are in the mail, and that includes more than just what you won. That is the truth.
Thanks, Jake, and congratulations on your move, and congratulations on the new look for the new lineup for the fans.
So now the
was
Thunder...
Darnell our Kansas winner?
Yes, Darnell won, and you won Kansas and as well the 500 this year, right?
No, last year with Marcus Erickson.
Yeah. See, it's been a while, like I said.
What are the odds of that?
Darnell, give me real quick before we get to the pop quiz. Thunder rundown. Was it runner-up in the latest tournament?
Third, they stopped the tournament due to a heat index on Wednesday. So they shut down the whole thing. So we had to play early morning games, like starting at 6:30, and then we played games on Friday. We were on the beat ball field Friday for like 10 hours. We only had about an hour and a half off our feet. We lost twice to San Antonio. First, when the quarterfinals 20-19, then in the elimination game, which was Friday night after we played 8 hours on the beach ball field. 21-14, just didn't have enough, and the Edge went back-to-back, and so we finished third.
I would have thought not Heat Lightning, or not Heat Index, but Heat Lightning would be matched with the Thunder, but, what do I know?
Yeah, but anyway, so we had a good year. I mean, we just didn't have enough to get to Saturday. Just ran out of steam, I think, just from being on the field for so long. But, we, like I said, the top 3 teams, the first and third place team in the world are here in Indianapolis. So from a 2-year
yeah, that's cool.
Team, some of our guys went to the Edge, but like I said, we'll be back there next year, I'm sure, with what we have to shore up. But
I love it.
Proud of our team.
All right, Darnell, would you like for me, that would be, and congratulations on that, by the way, would you like for me, that would be Jake, or for Kevin to lead you off with question number 1?
Let's do Kevin.
All right, Darnell, number 1 here. The Colts are off to Buffalo to face the Bills, of course, tomorrow. Highmark Stadium. The stadium opened 50 years ago and has undergone several name changes since 1973. What was the original name of Highmark Stadium when it opened in August of 73? And obviously the money has flowed in ever since. Was it A, Bills Stadium, B, Orchard Park Stadium, C, Ralph Wilson Stadium, or D, Rich Stadium?
I'll say C.
Quarterback's name starting for the Colts tomorrow?
Is that the second question?
No, I want a confirmation. Do you know the rookie's name, number 5?
Anthony Richard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, A, Bills Stadium, B, Orchard Park, C, Ralph Wilson, or D, Rich Stadium?
D, Rich Stadium.
Okay. Question number 2 for you, Darnell. The IndyCar Series races at IMS tomorrow with the Gallagher Grand Prix. Who is the defending winner of the Gallagher Grand Prix, who also won the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500? Alex Palou, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenqvist, or Will Power?
Rossi.
Nice. Okay, number 3 here. Matt Olson, that's a Braves first baseman, Darnell, hit his 40th home run of the season yesterday, and the Braves lost to Pittsburgh. Olson's on pace to hit 57 home runs this season, which would smash the Braves franchise record. Who holds the record for most home runs in a season in Braves franchise history? Is it A, Hank Aaron, B, Eddie Matthews, C, Andrew Jones, or D, Dale Murphy?
I'll go with
This guy's a hell of a defensive player as well.
We lost you there for a second, Darnell. Give that again.
Dale Murphy.
Okay. Question number 4. New York Mets first baseman Pete Alonso is just the 4th player in Major League history to hit 35 home runs or more in 4 of his first 5 seasons of his career. Which of the following players did not accomplish that feat? And he has 2 first names. Eddie Matthews, Albert Pujols, Ralph Kiner, or Ryan Howard?
Ryan Howard.
Okay.
That was impressive, Darnell. Okay, number 5. 2 years ago today, Milwaukee Brewers pitcher Corbin Burns became the 3rd pitcher in Major League history to strike out 10 batters in a row in a game against the Cubs. No shock there, the opponent. The second was the Phillies' Aaron Nola in June 2021. Who was the first pitcher to strike out 10 batters in a row in a Major League game? A, Nolan Ryan, B, Vida Blue, C, Tom Seaver, or D, Sam McDowell?
I'll go B, Vida Blue.
All right.
Yes.
Darnell, no matter what happens here, stay on the line. Jake, a nice start for Darnell.
Darnell was correct with Rich Stadium.
Let's kick some ass.
Correct with Alexander Rossi. I would have looked like a total moron. Excuse me?
Keep going.
Number 4, Ryan Howard. That was a decisive answer there.
Ryan Howard.
Which one of you guys
correct.
wants to lick the knife?
Okay.
And then 3 and 5 were the slip-ups, very similar to Jake's comment right there. It was not Dale Murphy, the record for the Braves' most home runs in a season. Andrew Jones, and then Tom Seaver.
You blew it! Come back, put a bow tie on, is that right? I'm blowing Mark.
43
here.
Easy.
Yeah,
That was a little too spread out there.
I'm blowing you static, sorry.
God,
Maybe my favorite drop.
Please send it to a break. We'll one final time.
Hey there, it's Jake Quarry for AAA. You know, my friends at AAA are always there for me. Flat tire, dead battery, running out of gas, locking my keys in my car, whatever it may be, AAA is there 24/7, 365 days a year. For example, this past winter, I hit kind of a hidden curb under the snow, got a flat tire, and AAA was there for me, a lifesaver in the cold weather. But there's so much more to being a AAA member, like all the ways that the membership can save you money with an exclusive member-only discount on hotels, rental cars, and more. And did you know that AAA members get into the Indiana State Fair for free on AAA Day? Just show your AAA card at the gate on Wednesday, August 16th. My AAA membership saves me so much money each year, it pays for itself. What are you waiting for? Join AAA today. To get your AAA membership, visit AAA.com, call 844-GO-AAA-GO, or stop by your local AAA office. Save the date for AAA Day at the Indiana State Fair on Wednesday, August 16th. AAA members get in free. Details at AAA.com. I'll see you there.
The Hoop Collective Podcast.
I'm at our ESPN LA studios. You may remember that Bev did a couple of days of work for ESPN last year.
No, I remember. I was on with him.
He left a gorgeous Dolce & Gabbana suit here that is just spectacular.
You should wear it on TV today, Brian.
I do not believe it will fit me, only because the arms are too long. You're across the street. Come over and get it. It's got to be at least a $7,000 suit.
The Hoop Collective Podcast. Listen on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Thinking about gas mileage. You know, changing your oil with a full synthetic oil like Pennzoil Platinum can help your engine get more miles. Right now, you can get 5 quarts with an STP Extended Life Oil Filter for only $35.99. Get started on your next job today with the parts you need when you need them at AutoZone or AutoZone.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Okay, true stories from Huntington customers with Kitty.
So, tell me about yourself.
I was blind from birth.
That must make banking difficult.
That requires a lot of trust. Before I could even ask, Huntington offered their statements in Braille. That made me feel like I was as important as you are.
I'm sure.
It feels like just the right place.
Get more than money from your bank. Welcome to Huntington. Real people compensated for true stories.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
Hey y'all, my name is Tiara, and a little thing that I love about the Chick-fil-A Spicy Chicken Biscuit is that it has the perfect amount of spice to jumpstart my day. Whoever thought of it, thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Robert, and the little thing I love about Chick-fil-A Spicy Chicken Biscuit is the biscuit. It reminds me of my grandma's homemade biscuit. It's always buttery and savory. Then you add the spices, instant classic.
Order the Spicy Chicken Biscuit on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real Chick-fil-A guests paid for their testimonials.
Hey, it's Big Joe for your independent, locally owned American Standard hometown dealer in Johnson County, Marshall Mechanical Heating and Cooling. Are you tired of the free air conditioner or furnace sketchy claims and want an honest quote with honest pricing from people who live and work in your community? Call Marshall Mechanical. Just go to callthemarshallnow.com to schedule an appointment. Financing options are available. Subject to credit approval, call for details. Marshall Mechanical Heating and Cooling, your American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer in Johnson County.
Don't miss the Colts kickoff concert featuring the Jim Irsay Band and Collection at Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday, September 8th. This free evening will feature a concert by the all-star Jim Irsay Band featuring special guests Stephen Stills, Heart lead singer Ann Wilson, Peter Wolf of Jay Giles Band fame, Chris Angel, and many more. Doors open at 4 and the concert begins at 8. The Colts kickoff concert with the Jim Irsay Band is one night only, Friday, September 8th. Free tickets are available now at colts.com/concert.
You are listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
By the way, Colts may be on their way to Buffalo, but if you're in the area of Westfield, or if you are still planning on going up to their available days at Grand Park, you got to stop by Quack Daddy Donuts right there on Spring Mill and use the code word. What is today's code for $3 off a dozen?
Horseshoe.
Horseshoe.
And that is good for Saturday and Sunday as well.
Wear your Colts gear, get 10% off. Andy and the folks at Quack Daddy Donuts, the best that you can find in terms of donut combinations, whether you want their famous maple bacon, I mean, all of them, the Fruity Pebbles, the
what did I have? I had the
butter.
Oreo caramel.
Man,
is that what I had earlier this
unbelievable.
week? Outstanding. Yeah, just north of 161st and Spring Mill. Horseshoe, head in there, $3 off a dozen donuts from Quack Daddy. Jake, rundown on the weekend. You're going to be a busy man over at IMS, correct?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a busy time. Today, IndyCar and Indy Next are on track. Again, the main feature of that, qualifying for IndyCar, is going to take place in the middle of the day, and then the Indy Next to round things out before the gates close at 6. 4:50, I think, is when that green flag falls. Then tomorrow, it is the Gallagher Grand Prix for IndyCar, as well as the Xfinity race on the road course. And then on Sunday, it is the Verizon 200, which is essentially the Allstate Brickyard is what it was known as. Now it's the Verizon 200, and that is the road course with the NASCAR Cup cars going around.
Is that going to be on TV or streaming?
It's on TV.
Not on Peacock?
Okay.
Just want to know.
Okay.
The weather looks good Friday.
Any more you want to get out of your system
and
than Mark?
Sunday.
You got all week next week.
Yeah, weather looks very good Friday and Sunday, so good news on that. Hopefully tomorrow cooperates, because tomorrow is a busy day, as Jake just laid out there. And obviously 1 o'clock tomorrow on these airwaves. Actually, 10 a.m. is when our coverage is going to start. Colts and Bills. Guys, are we doing the 3.5? Are we taking the Colts 3.5?
That's 4.5 from what I saw.
Terry, I thought, laid it out really well. Terry's like Minshew and then Ellinger go in. We know what Ellinger does in the preseason.
1-800-9 with it. Who's Buffalo's
that.
backup quarterback?
For some reason, Matt Barkley is popping in my
I was
head.
just going to say, Matt Barkley's been there forever, right?
Didn't they have Trubisky at one point?
Who's their third-string quarterback?
I'll tell you right now.
Because they aren't starting...
Alex Van Pelt?
Oh, they've got Kyle Allen. Not Josh's brother, but Kyle Allen.
Josh Allen is the starter. Kyle Allen is the second stringer. Matt Barkley, the third stringer.
Wait, Kyle Allen, where is he out of?
I think he started his college career at A&M, and I think he transferred somewhere. He was a really highly
big-time
rated recruit.
Right, I remember that.
Kyle Allen went to Houston.
He started A&M and then transferred?
I don't know.
Thought he did. But yeah, he's certainly started games in the NFL. Gosh, Matt Barkley, how long has he been in the league?
Good for him, man. I mean, that's the way to just make a career as a backup guy.
If you missed it,
stockpile money.
Jake's going to be sleeping in starting August 21st. Jake's moving to noon to 3. That will be Query and Company.
I started sleeping in about a year ago.
Head to our show. Don't have to remind us. Head to our show page for details there. Andy Sweeney out of Louisville, ESPN Louisville, going to be joining us. I hear from people he's strongly opinionated.
Really?
In his Twitter profile, he lists himself as a gas bag.
Okay. That's like me.
We're losing one gas bag and we're bringing in another.
That's right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right.
So he'll be joining Mark and I in the morning starting a week from Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Kevin and Query signing off, but we'll be back for one more week together.